Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Declined Invite. I'm your host, the extroverted IT leader, Ryan Drumheller. And today's theme is about building modern security programs across compliance, cloud, and AI, and leading risk without slowing innovation. Today's conversation is about modern security leadership. And it's not just tools, not just frameworks, but the mindset required to protect cloud native systems, regulated environments, and now AI driven platforms. Today's guest that I'm happy to have here, my old boss and now friend, the one, the only Mr. Jay Whitmore. Nice to have
Hello.
you, Jay.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
I'm glad you finally agreed to do it. So, a little bit about Jay's background. He's currently the director of IT security at Curve.ai. It's defining and implementing enterprise-wide security across infrastructure applications and AI systems. He's the former director of IT security at Neil Pollard Interactive. It was North America's leading provider of innovative iLottery solutions. He has deep expertise in PCI, DSS, SOC 1, SOC 2, GDPR, CCPA, overseeing environments protecting $300 million plus in credit card records, career path from penetration testing and vulnerability management to executive advisory, CISSP-certified security leader and respected peer in the cybersecurity community. So that's a mouthful, Jay. At the same time, though, I experienced it. I obviously worked for you once, but a lot of credentials, a big list, and I mean, greatest hits, career list in the cybersecurity world. I would strive to want to have that hits list one day. So let's get into some icebreakers.
It makes me feel old, so thank you.
Well, I mean, I can already see the white hairs on the screen from my image, so I don't know that I'm that much behind you here. But what's one cybersecurity buzzword that you'd happily retire?
It's funny because when you sent me the list for this, I saw AI in it. I'm like, oh, that is the one thing I would get rid of. Every tool seems to have AI in it. And I agree, AI is going to be a game changer. The tech space is going to drastically change with AI tooling, but not every tool needs to have AI. It's like cloud in the early 2000s. Everything had cloud, and that's not necessary.
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. It's unavoidable. I mean, I'm thinking I'm gonna have AI clothing or something at some point here.
The privacy implications of AI underwear are going to be interesting.
No, yeah. I mean, I don't want to do an audit with that.
Well, medical devices is a great thing that you're going to see. You're going to see AI built into medical devices, and how are you going to secure that? How are you going to make sure that that data stays private? Because you want the functionality, you want early warnings, not having to go through a medical professional, but at the same time, your information is then stored in a cloud someplace.
Stored if somebody hacks that, like,
Mhm.
grandpa's no longer with us. Like that's a scary situation. Yeah, that's a scary world there. In a different light, what's an invite in your role that you've learned to decline?
Unsolicited sales. I love to learn about new tools, but I'm very busy, and I don't mean to say I'm very important, but I am very busy. And so when your salesperson reaches out on LinkedIn and I don't know who you are, one, I'm not clicking on links. I'm not opening your PDF to talk about your tool. But on top of that, I honestly just don't have time to sit down with you and talk about your tool. I will see it. I'll see it at Black Hat. I'll see it at a local conference here. I'll hear about it from my peers, and then I'll reach out to you when I have a need for that tool.
Yeah, I mean, somebody who's kind of joining the sales space-ish, that is an interesting like landmine to navigate, I would say. The first thing that comes to my mind is like, yeah, everybody's busy, so you have to get quickly like, what are you here for, and shorten that up. But at the same time, how do you navigate? Like you just said, your peers will hear about it. Well, what if they don't, and then you're the one who the peers are hearing? It's a weird landmine to navigate that hopefully I'll have somebody in sales one day to teach me more about how to navigate.
I will say that good tools tend to bubble up. So whether it's consulting or something new in the environment that hasn't existed before, I think back to Darktrace. When Darktrace first came on the scene, it was one of those things where it's like, well, what do you do exactly? Oh, well, we look at everything that's happening in your network and warn you about things before they happen. It was really one of the first was one of the first tools I saw that did behavioral analysis, not just network analysis or file analysis, looking at hashes, but actually was looking at anomalous behavior and saying, oh, well, you know what? This is a little weird. We're going to raise this up. And now you see that everywhere. Every tool that in existence that's doing MDR, EDR is doing something along those lines. So good stuff will bubble up eventually. But yeah, it can be a bit of a pain. I understand why they reach out. It's just, I wish I had more time. I wish I could do nothing but sit through sales demos all day long, but I got stuff I have to do.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I get hit up all the time at this point. I'm like, I don't even know if you know what I'm doing. You just see a fancy title and you're all of a sudden wanting to sell a service. So I could talk about that for a minute. But what's
That's what we're
something
doing.
people what is something that people consistently misunderstand about what a director of IT security actually does?
So, from a job perspective, a lot of people think that I'm running a hacker collective in a business, and that certainly is not what's happening. But about InfoSec in general, from a business perspective, they seem to understand that information security is there to protect the company, but they equate that to granting access to things. I can't be an expert in everything in the company. So I shouldn't necessarily be the one person who's granting access. I should review that, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to have a security engineer that's bringing 90 to 100K a year being the person granting access and their entire day filled up with answering tickets to grant access. That can be done by a support person. That engineer's better situated when they are the person writing the rules that the support person is utilizing to determine who gets access. So they're the ones writing data classification. What kind of software, what kind of data does that tool that they're getting access to contain? Limiting that access to people who need to know. So asking the question when the ticket comes in, why do you need this? What business purpose are you trying to serve? And being that thought person, not necessarily the person who's keying in a username and a password, or worst case, resetting a password for every user. So building up the automation is a more useful use of their time and resources.
Yeah, so I mean, the strategic point of view, like instead of the gatekeeper, like that does exist, but not at that particular level, nor should you want it. Like to your point, you should want to be thinking about the governance behind it. What data is this, connected to? Is it spread across the environment? Is there like the right access? Is there no access? Like all of those are the concerns. So yeah, no, it's interesting take when you ask people about IT security. It's pretty much along the lines of like, yeah, they literally think of a door being opened and closed over and over.
Yeah, I'm not the security guard at the front door. I'm the guy who's designing the door to make sure it only opens when it's supposed to open. And so I think that's one of the misconceptions that people get, both when they first ask about going into security, but also from a business perspective, when they hire someone to do security in that way, cybersecurity specifically, they think of someone who's going to fix everything by just sitting in the seat. And it's not. It's I'm going to design good processes. I'm going to design automation that's going to allow for the resources that you're using to be utilized smarter. But I'm not going to be. It doesn't do you any good if I'm just there saying no. That if you want that, I can do that. But no as a service isn't something that I suggest.
What we need to tell a lot of other IT security directors or people in control of IT, because I've definitely seen that too. I mean, if I get it in a lot of cases, like, preferably we might want to go to the perfect solution for everything. I think actually you taught me this, that security isn't about just being secure. You also need to function as a business. The business still needs to be a business at the same time. So you have to find that fine line of the business can function and also be as secure as we can be with that function.
Yeah, that's one of the first lessons that I learned, kind of moving up from being just a tech to being someone who's a leader, is understanding that businesses function on risk. If you're not taking risks as a business, you can't grow. You might be able to maintain where you're at for a little while, but you can't grow. You have to accept there's a certain amount of risk. Just having a website gives you risk. So risk isn't the enemy. It's stupid risk is the enemy. You want to make sure that you're getting a business benefit or fulfilling a business purpose that's benefiting your business in order to accept those risks that you're going to accept. And then continuous improvement. So it's not right today. That's fine. Make it more right tomorrow and then continue to improve from there. Most businesses that I've walked in the door on, they don't have $1 million to give me right now for tooling, resources, and processes. They have a budget, but they need to know what's most important, and then they can plan for across a 2, 3, 5-year plan of how to get to a better place. And that's where, again, that's where I think my personal value comes in, is I can write that plan and get you to where you need to be.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, of course, they wouldn't have the budget. That's why they're hiring somebody to come in and tell them what they need. Makes perfect sense. But, in the day of AI right now, just read an article, I think actually today, which was like that 2, 3, 4, 5 year, whatever you want to call it, plan is getting so muddled with things are changing that quickly now that I've got to imagine that creates a little bit of like it's not like the days before that where you could just like, okay, repeatable, we can do that. Now you actually have to plan a little bit for the unknown, I think. So I don't know how AI has maybe impacted that challenge for you, especially being at an AI company now and seeing it firsthand every day. Is that how has that been for you in terms of like planning?
So it's not, the AI itself hasn't changed that. The planning is still around what's coming next on the business. And a lot of it is based on intuition. So I haven't found an AI yet that does a good job at intuition. It can look for patterns. It can notice patterns that maybe a person didn't notice. But when you talk about is the world going to look like in 5 years? One, humans are terrible at that too. But an AI is just making a best guess, just like a person would. But when you want to look at what a business has been doing, what's been successful for them, an AI usually doesn't have enough data to make a good estimate of that. So I wouldn't look at an AI as a great business planning tool, other than looking at the data that exists and where our market's growing. So it is good for that. You may not notice that, I can't give a good example. You may not notice that widgets are selling for double what they're selling, but you can guess that, oh, well, the widget market has doubled. Maybe I should go sell some widgets. So I look at that. So what's happening right now in the AI market, people are looking at tooling that has AI in the title and going, oh, yes, that. But are they doing it well? Is the data you're putting in going to go somewhere? Perplexity is a great example, in my opinion. You don't know what AI tool set you need. So why not get one that touches all the AI tool sets? Because then your data is in all the AI tool sets. So, and I'm sure their security is there. I haven't actually done a deep dive in them to tell you for a fact that there's a problem, but it's just another place where you could lose data. And so again, you go back to that risk statement. Is there a business benefit you're getting by using something like Perplexity over any of the other flavors of AI?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point, and exactly. Just did a webinar on the topic of data and AI, and I believe you have another half that works in data. So I'm sure that we're well aware of data and being clean and secure in storage and everything. And maybe we'll touch on that a little bit later here. But let's go into some of your foundations, from your hands-on security to your leadership. So you started in system security administration and penetration testing. What did those early years teach you about how organizations really behave under risk?
So I didn't come into security when security first started. I did come into it later. I'm not that old. But every business that I've ever started to work with has had questions about security and what it means to have good security. So that really is a lot of it, is education of whether it's executives or managers on what good security is. Everybody wants to have everyone has good intent when it comes to that. Nobody is leaving intentional holes or anything like that. So it really is about discovery for them and teaching them about where they have a problem, which is one of the things I loved about penetration testing, was not just being able to think like the attacker. That is the sexy part of cybersecurity, is the penetration test, the open source intelligence gathering, the red teaming. And so whenever I'm working with other professionals, students that want to be professionals, I have to make it very clear, that's not this job. This job is audit. This job is reading documentation and giving advice based on attack vectors, which is what you learn from doing that penetration testing. But at the end of the day, especially from a leadership perspective, it really isn't a lot different from any other job where you have direct reports. You want to encourage them to expand their career, expand their knowledge, kind of continue to grow. even if it's not within the company you're currently with. It's grow in your career, grow in your personal space.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's certainly not like the war battles or any of the movies, that you see on cybersecurity. It is plainly very boring sitting in rooms and going over a list of did you do X, Y, and Z, and if so, show me the documentation. And some of that maybe. You hope you're actually not in battle because that's the worst case scenario, honestly. So when you were running the vulnerability assessments, during release cycles, what kind of friction did you see between security and development?
Yeah, it's always a timing issue. Development are under deadlines to deliver a product because sales promised it or because the market's demanding that it be done now. Security wants time to scan it properly and make sure that it doesn't have vulnerabilities that are going to cost the company money in the future. And so aligning those two is usually where the friction is. And the reality is that the best cybersecurity is going to be flexible, just like the best development is flexible. So if you need it delivered in a time frame that security can't meet, be creative. Maybe there's outside resources you can bring in. Maybe there's people you can spin off of the development team to help security perform better testing. So having unit testing will allow security to accelerate doing remediation testing. So it really is about communication between departments. We're not adversaries. I know there's a trope that marketing and sales always are, security's always mad at them and they're always mad at security. And you're not wrong, but that doesn't have to be that way. They absolutely, again, everyone has the best intent. Security doesn't want the company to go under and they want to continue to make money, and sales wants the same thing. So it's about communicating desire and need and doing it in a way that everyone is heard, and then doing what's best for the company. And may not win in security, may not win every time, but making sure that that's documented and signed off by executives, that's where you land.
Yeah, I think the one word that you use that would probably be the most surprising for people not in security to hear was the word flexible,
Yeah.
because that's not what the outside typically thinks of, right? They think of that door scenario again, but really, again, like you said, it's about making sure the business is able to do the function that they're trying to accomplish, but at the same time, finding the creative ways to make sure it is secure. Maybe we can't do it that particular way we were going to do it, but there might be a B, C, D option that will still get the job done, still allow them to do what they do. And maybe it means we got to spend a little bit extra time to implement it or go get this other tool to do it or whatever it is. And that's a better route to go than shutting the door and locking it.
Yeah. Well, and a good kind of counter to that is if you're not flexible, if you have a hard line no, you have a compliance standard or you have an audit or a contract that just says you can't do whatever it is, then it's talking with the business to find out what are you trying to accomplish? Well, we want to publish everyone's social security numbers online to make it easier for people to find their social security number when they lose it. Okay, no, but what if we figured out an authentication mechanism that allowed people to go in and discover that information in a way that was done securely? Oh, yeah, that'd be fine. Great. We're both happy. No, you can't do it unless you do this. So there have to be no's, but they don't have to be no and walk away. It's no and let's talk.
Yeah, the explaining part I think is crucial. It's like this is why it's not my opinion. This is like you said, it's an audit thing. We're not going to have a business if we do this. But yeah, like you just said, here's an alternative. Does it get you close enough that it accomplishes the goal that you want? And now we're all happy and we kept the lights on because the business isn't going to get fined or shut
Yeah.
down.
And that's one of the pieces of advice I'd love to give other cybersecurity people is something you brought up to me, and I love the phrase "bring your receipts." So when someone has a problem with what you're trying to do and you don't agree, bring your receipts. Show the exact line in the compliance. Show the exact line in the contract. Show the information that is why you are making your decision, and then work with them to figure out how to get to where they want to get to or need to get to for whatever reason. But yeah, that was a good lesson you taught me.
It was a lesson learned of have your documentation, otherwise there is no argument at the end of the day. Definitely a lesson learned. So, at what point did you realize security is actually more about leadership and communication than just the technical controls?
Yeah, that was kind of when I moved up from doing just pen testing and auditing to actually having to interface with executives, I saw the I won't call it bullying because that's not fair. When I saw my advice was not landing properly, when I would suggest something was important and it wouldn't be listened to, that's when I realized the problem here is me. Yes, the problem is on them. They don't understand it, but it's how I'm communicating that is not being effective. And so I had to change how I communicated. It really is about explaining it in a way that isn't talking down to them, because they are smart people. I mean, these are business executives that have worked hard for years, but their knowledge, their depth of knowledge is just in a different domain than mine. So I hear this a lot in tech, and maybe you hear it too, that, oh, the users are just annoying, or the users causes problem. How do they not know to restart their computer? Yeah, but they're smart in other ways. That's why they need you. That's job security. You should be happy they forget their password. Build a better program. Build a better process so that they don't have to contact you. You use your brain power to automate password reset. Use your brain power to install the tool that allows you to remotely restart their computer. So when they call you up, the first thing you do is kick it. And then when they come back online, they tell you it's fixed, and you're the magician. You have all these great powers, but they just get so locked into, this is the only way I know how to do it, or this is the only way the company will allow me to pay to do it, that they give up on learning anything new, or they give up on the drive to make it better, because it just becomes the grind, the daily grind. So that's where good tech leadership really starts to shine. When your people, despite having done the job for 5, 10, 20 years, are still excited to try new things, that's a really talented tech leader. That's someone who is engaging their people and getting the best out of them, and not just getting through Monday through Friday.
Yeah, my spidey senses went off of all the Ryanisms that I say, which anybody that ever heard of me, I repeat so many things. And one of them that you said is tech to English. I think about that translation of who am I speaking with, and I don't assume to know their intelligence level, and I phrase it with emotions in such a way where they even see how I'm trying to come off, but I'm also translating it out of tech, like try to get it into a domain that maybe they'd understand. And then if they're capable of talking more into that domain, then awesome, we can work our way back up. And that seems to have done really well for me. And then another one that you mentioned that I say all the time, which is you only know what you know the day that you know it. So going forward, now that you know what this is, you can work a better outcome, going forward, and encouraging people absolutely to solve problems. Like, yeah, go ahead and solve problems. Like you said, it is job. This is why you're here. But if there's a creative way to do it, now again, not only did you become the magician, you also had a solvable outcome here. And now you save the company X, whatever it might be. Maybe you got a promotion out of it. Maybe you got extra projects that you can pick something that you wanted to always do and be creative with, whatever that might be. So yeah, I mean, how many stories do we got to go down that path? But how does your technical background still influence how you lead today?
So especially in tech, this isn't true across every business, but especially in tech, trust from the other techs is built most easily through shared experience. So knowing that I've reset passwords, knowing that I've written firewall rules, knowing that I've led audits and been the subject of audits and performed audits gives them some level of trust inherent to what I'm talking about. And I'm going to cuss on your show for you. Tech smell bullshit more finely than most people. Whether that's business bullshit or leadership bullshit, they instantly can smell it. So when you walk in the door and you try to implement changes that don't make any sense, you have to spend more time explaining it to them to get their buy-in. And you want their buy-in because you might be wrong. That's the other very important thing that I think all leaders should understand, is that being wrong happens, and you should own it when you're wrong and fix it. That is.
Yeah.
Going through and admitting I screwed up, I made the wrong decision, and then having them tell you, "Oh, we told you not to. I missed it. I wish you were louder. Next time, hold my hand and write it down on a piece of paper for me. So I will listen to you next time." And that's the unfortunate part.
Yeah, I think you just hit all the trauma points of of yesteryear. Yeah, I mean, the biggest lesson there to take away is don't be afraid to pivot on being wrong. Like, yeah, you're wrong. Cool. The best thing that you can do in that moment then is to pick what seems right instead of continuing down the path of wrong, because yeah, that's the quickest way to lose a tech team. And you're right. I don't know how many sandwiches that I was asked to sell that it's just like, this is not going to go the way. And it's like, well, what did you say to them? It's like, they're not, you're hiring people that are supposed to be intelligent. Like, what did you think was going to happen, at the end of the day? So you do need to think about whatever that message is that you're delivering. And at the same time, there's a reputation that we keep as leaders as well. And I think the best thing that we did was some sort of honesty. At the same time, like, we have to do it because of whatever. It's the same thing that I try to teach anybody with any kind of audit or security. It's like, no, it's not me doing it. We have to do it because of X or whatever. And the more business knowledge that they can gain or the reason for why, then you change the minds of tech individuals into, well, why are they doing it to me, to now, okay, well, maybe they shouldn't do it that way. They should do it this way, and it would accomplish a better goal. And they start being creative. That's what I've noticed. If you can try to get their brains wired that way, now they become an ally and help you create better outcomes, or just really convoluted things that we don't want to do. But one of those two typically happen.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you don't have to be a tech to be a tech leader. It helps though. It helps more than most other businesses. I can also say it's probably very true of marketing. If you're not a marketing person, being a marketing leader, it's difficult. There's a different language that is spoken. So understanding that language is really important. And especially when it comes to the executive, sitting in an executive boardroom with other leaders that are not techs and them asking, hey, can we do this thing? And again, you don't want to be that just flat no. Well, we could, but we need to do it by these other things being in place. That's where that value to a business is that the tech leadership, being someone who understands tech, can answer those questions immediately in that boardroom without having to go back to a team of people and say, all right, this is what the business wants to do. And then having to go back and forth 3 or 4 times with questions and answers and questions and answers. They can just be there in the room and have that voice. And that's one of the other things that I see, not a lot of companies, but the CTO, the CIO are usually the second and third level CO people that are born. You get the CEO, you get the CFO. Now you've got finances and the business idea. And now we need sales. Okay, now we got a salesperson. All right, well, hang on. We need someone to make sure all of the lights stay blinking. All right, let's get a CTO in. And that's kind of how a lot of companies grow. I've even seen tech companies grow like that, where they don't have someone who is board level that's technical at the beginning. The CEO feels like they're technical enough coming into, oh, well, I did tech for 20 years. I know what I'm doing. Not enterprise level, not this level of tech. So let's get someone in here who actually can build out a repeatable process and make the company successful.
I mean, you're not wrong. That's why I was hired at one of my endeavors. It's like, hey, we grew the business to X, and I mean, quite frankly, they had duplicate products of a lot of things across the board because they were running with no, guardrails or anything coming in. And that was another growing and learning experience, which is now trying to essentially take away the toys that they had gotten themselves, and also praising them for getting as far as they did. Like, you guys did absolutely make it this far. Now this is why we're going to do these things and make sure that we're able to continue to grow and go farther, because now we're getting more audits, or we're crossing more boundaries or state lines or countries or whatever it is that is now flagging us more. Those kind of conversations were an interesting challenge, and battles. Like, learned a lot how to conquer each one of those things for their benefit, for the company's benefit, and not for me being the mad or bad, or taking away the kid's toy that they got that they really liked. It's and we're teaching them about even just cost, right? So hey, if we do a global tool for the 5,000 users, we'll get better pricing for this than if you have your own one-off with 100 people in it versus the other tool that's out there that's got everybody else in it. It's like, oh, well, that makes sense. We'd like more budget. Like, cool, let's work together to get it.
Yeah. And that goes to a couple, and they're Jay-isms because they're me. So Monday's the best day of the week. We all know that. Policy is not control. So a lot of businesses will write really strong policies, or ChatGPT will write really strong policies, but the business isn't doing those things, or if they are doing them, they have left massive holes and allows for shadow IT or something like that. So having a control is more important than having a policy. Policy is a great first step, but control is important. And then failure is always an option. So thank you, Mythbusters. But especially when you have a group of technical, creative folks, you don't have to give them no guardrails. You do want to give them some limits to what they're doing, but allowing them to try things in a test environment that's controlled and come up with creative, interesting ideas. I'll give Harold a ton of credit. Harold, we addressed a problem that we had, saw it, and wrote a piece of code slash access database in the year 20 whatever that actually worked, and it worked well. But it's because we told him, if it doesn't work, that's okay, we'll figure something else out. But that's really where you have really talented people pushing out good information and good code. Takes time and takes them, giving them the ability to fail. So those are all ones that I think are really important to kind of ingest into our industry.
Yeah, real quick, shout out to Harold Strong. But yeah, I think I talked about this on my last episode of Damien about like the psychological safe space of failure, that obviously it's got to be a situation where we can absolutely like take that risk and make sure that we can do the failure if it comes to that. But then you learn the best from that as well. And maybe the next time we see that challenge, we know these things will not work, or maybe you identify it quicker and go, I know this will work because I ran into this. And that's how we grow and learn. And anybody who says that they don't accept failure, we're already off to a rough start, in my opinion, because that is 100% how you learn.
I've seen a lot of businesses that isn't so much that they don't accept it as they just punish it, or they fail to reward the effort that went into it. Well, you didn't make your metric. You didn't reach your KPI. Okay, well, I didn't because I was doing 10 other things that made the company $1 million. Yeah, but your bonus is based on your KPI. I'm sorry. You don't see that in small companies. You see that in large enterprises that just don't understand it. But that's how you stifle innovation. That's how you block good ideas from coming out, because you don't reward the fact that they made a solid effort. And that comes from, again, good tech leadership. Having someone like you who's sitting in the seat and notices, hey, you know what? This is 80%, but it's 80%, so it's good. But what do we need to get the last 20 to make this perfect? Oh, well, it's going to cost X many dollars. You know what? I don't think that there's value in that. I'm happy with 80%. Or, you know what? You're right. I want you to take the next 2 weeks and do nothing but make this work. And if in 2 weeks it still doesn't work, then you go, you know what? That was valuable for all of us. One, we now know our guesstimate, our swag on 80%, way off. We can't do this. And two, you've learned something valuable that you can take for the rest of your career, whether it's a coding challenge or a tooling challenge or whatever it is. The next time someone asks, are you an expert in Salesforce? You can say, yes, I spent 2 weeks digging the Salesforce config files, trying to make it do this thing. And you know what? It can't. And so that's where there's still a ton of value to you. And even failed projects should be going into your resume or your LinkedIn profile or wherever you track your projects.
Yeah, I mean, the percentage of successful projects, like, awesome, cool, because that's what I hired you to do, like, at the end of the day. But yeah, I'm more curious about the failures. Like, what did you learn from that experience? What are you going to do differently coming out of it? How many people, all of those things. There's many times, the teams that I've led, there was one particular time where they should have updated an SSL, and it took everything down because they simply just didn't remember to do it. Crappy experience at the end of the day. You know what? As a leader, I could have said that's exactly what happened. I kind of did, but I said it's my responsibility to do that and keep that away. And they all were left confused with that. And it's like, at the end of the day, it is. I asked for the leadership job, got the leadership job. That's part of being a leader, a good one anyways, at the end of the day. But then they took that and were ashamed at themselves and made sure that they scheduled the reminders and made sure it was more automated and made sure we had a better outcome. So it was a great example of they ended up with a better outcome from a simple mistake of just didn't do it at the end of the day. And that's more real than it's not.
Yeah. And the thing is that that's one of the things that makes you a really good leader, is you inspire people to feel that it wasn't just that the business had the cert go down and that sucks and that's hard. And yeah, I screwed up, man. I hope I don't get fired. It's okay. The cert went down. Ryan said it's not my fault, even though I know it is a little bit my fault. I didn't remember it, but look at how he's owning that. Look at how he's accepting that part of this is on him. I'm never going to make that mistake again. I don't want to disappoint Ryan. I will never make that mistake again because I'm now invested. It's not the business that was hurt by that. It was Ryan, and Ryan looks out for me. I'm never going to make that mistake again. My dad said something that I was a child, it was baseball, but he would tell people, we never lost a game. Our team, we never lost because the team won, he lost. He was the coach. He put the wrong player into the wrong position. He didn't spend enough time practicing whatever thing it was that went wrong, whether it was an overthrow at first base or a kid striking out. It wasn't that kid's fault. It was his fault as a coach. And so it took all that pressure off of us. We could just go out and have fun. And when we had fun, we tended to do well versus struggling and being worried about striking out or missing a throw or whatever it was. So you win as a team in tech, but you lose at a management level. And if you can't handle that as a manager level, if you need to be right on everything, you're in the wrong business. You absolutely are going to struggle, and you're going to have a hard time keeping really good people because they need that. They need that cover. They need that overwatch to keep the bad things from happening to them.
Yeah, I think the first person that I really gravitated towards, probably because the time frame happens to ironically be a sports team I watch, Dan Campbell is a great example of everything that happens good is never him, it's his team, and everything that happens bad is always him and never the team. And I tried to do the same thing because at the end of the day, it's a weird balance because you do have to answer to others about what happened and what's going on and all of that stuff. But at the same time, like I've been in those situations where they wanted a name. Well, who did it? And I refused to give them the name. Like at the end of the day, I did it. It's under my watch. I'll correct the problem. We'll make sure, it wasn't malicious, like to the point. That's a whole different ballgame if that's malicious, but it things like this happen, and you have, like, to your point, you have to create a space for them to be able to learn from that. And if we have the same mistake, it's different. The rule is always try not to have the exact same one, but you should be able to make the mistakes because that's how you grow. I didn't come out, of the womb with perfect skin and all the good things. Like I earned all of my scars along the way because I learned no, and you don't do these things, and this is why. Like you got to go through it at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So moving into some more enterprise and regulation experience into the compliance world. So you've worked deeply into PCI DSS and SOX environments. Does compliance actually equal security?
Yes, but it gives a good baseline for controls. It is far more valuable to use it to build out your reasons for why you need to do a control, whether that's firewall rules or whatever it is you need to put in, but it only defines the minimum. So you should be striving to do more than the minimum. You should be looking at ways to meet compliance controls, but then also utilize those to build in automations and things that make the company better. I've noticed that in a lot of the businesses that I've sat down with and talk with their executive teams, they want to know why they have to do whatever the control happens to be. And so having that a PCI says you have to do this, or your own policies that are audited in your SOC 2 say you have to do this, they look at that and say, oh, well, okay, well, maybe we'll put that in. But if you can frame it that you can utilize all these controls to differentiate yourselves between your competitors, that's where there's a ton of value there. And that's where I don't think a lot of security people work with sales teams. Sitting down with the sales guy saying, look, we are SOC 2 compliant. You should utilize that. Whenever you're talking with a client, lead with our tooling is amazing and our tech is amazing and we're compliant. Here it is, off you go. That has value that a lot of businesses don't necessarily utilize more today than when I started doing this, but it's still, there's a lag there between security, having good security, and the business kind of championing that to their clients, that we have good security. I think it's becoming more important. You look at more and more businesses are looking at third-party risk, and third-party risk is all about having a control framework in place that you are following, and then not just meeting those controls, but staying off of the radar of the bad actors that don't care that you have firewall rule reviews quarterly. They want to know if you have something open and that they can access now. And so that's where going beyond just having quarterly access reviews, but actually doing proactive firewall monitoring or having a regular cadence of penetration testing on your environment more than the annual that PCI requires or the monthly vulnerability scanning they require. But are you actually testing your stuff or are you just checking a box? PCI does not mean you're secure. PCI means you successfully check the boxes, but it should give people who don't necessarily have a strong cybersecurity background, your IT manager that isn't CISSP, he can use that to build in a good security program if he can meet PCI requirements.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Like, yeah, I've checked the box for the basics. Like, I did what they said I had to have, but and I think that's also a tough argument. I think to the business of like, but you said we're compliant. Like, how do we get to the extra layers of security that we really should be, right? I think that kind of comes back into the next question I'm going to ask here, which is, so you've supported environments that are tied to hundreds of millions of customer records. How does that scale and change your mindset around risk?
So it's going to sound awful, but it doesn't. If I'm securing 300 million, if the company I work for, we did the full credit file of every American adult. Securing that data, critically important, highly audited. But if I'm running a company that has 1,000 records, the impact to my business of a disclosure, a breach of that data is catastrophic, whether it's 1,000 or 300 million. I'm going to be in the news for 300 million, and that sucks. But I'm going to have to disclose in contract negotiations. I'm going to have to disclose in investor calls that I've had a breach. And so, yes, scale does have some impact, but from a cybersecurity perspective, data is data. Sorry, confidential data is confidential data. I don't want it out there in the public. So I'm going to take the effort to secure it. Now, from a planning perspective, it's a lot easier to sell $100,000 software bill to a company that needs to protect 300 million records than it is to sell that $100,000 bill to a company that needs to protect 1,000 records. So in that regard, scale matters, but that comes from good communication. So explaining the risk to the business of this is a catastrophic shut the business doors tomorrow risk that we need to figure out a way to mitigate or eliminate is where a good cybersecurity leader comes in, sits down with an executive board.
Yeah, because I mean, the potentials of, like you said, catastrophic, or we're going to be in the news for not the great headlines you want to be. That's normally the stuff that gets at least the attention for a conversation at the very least. And, maybe it doesn't exactly go the way that we would hope it to go, but now we've at least had the convo, put it on the risk register, move forward, monitor that, and hope that we don't get there.
I am going to say that hope is not a plan, but okay, good for you. So I would much rather we plan for what we need to do when that happens. I mean, good tabletopping for BCPDR, having an incident response program documented with playbooks means that when bad things happen, you're not hoping that it gets better. You're following a process. I told this to an HR person who we both know. If you aren't following a documented process, then when the time comes that it may become a legal process, you don't have any coverage. You can't say, oh, I did this because that's the way I thought I should do it. Well, you can say that, but it is far more powerful to say, I followed the documented process my company has written. I am doing the thing that I was told I was supposed to do. At that point, you can be absolved because you followed company process. Same thing for an incident response playbook. Did you follow the playbook? Did you check all the things you were told you needed to check? Well, yes, but we missed something. Hey, you know what? That happens. Failure is an option. We're going to write that in the playbook for next time, but you are then covered when you sit in a legal proceeding for why didn't you make sure that this thing had been rotated or that this access had been revoked. It wasn't part of the playbook. We missed it. Here's what's now part of the playbook.
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to like the maturity scale of the business, and that same individual or department, and HR. That was one of the better things that we had done kind of early on was making sure that access was known, automatically taken away, given, sat down with them and built the process out collaboratively, and made sure that it made sense for them, because I'm a huge proponent of, if it doesn't make sense for you or doesn't work, then you're just not going to do it. So made sure to partner with them and build that out in the end. And I mean, if we lost anything or something didn't get done, it wasn't because it wasn't being followed as a process at that point. It just simply wasn't being put in, which is a totally different ballgame. But yeah, I mean, situations like that are critical to partner with other partners in the business and just make sure that you're following some sort of process. It does make conversations a lot easier when you can point to it and go, "I did this," versus there's nothing to point at.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what would you say separates organizations that are actually audit ready from those that are scrambling?
So, if you're gonna hire one IT guy, me, but if you're gonna hire two, it's a GRC analyst, someone who understands how to prep for an audit, um, and is doing that work daily is really where the value is. Audits aren't just once a year. That's what a lot of businesses like, oh, we're getting into audit season. No, audit season should be all year long. Audit season should be not necessarily providing the evidence on a monthly basis, though there are times when that is the right answer, but making sure that the evidence that is there is being considered every time a process changes. So if you're spinning up a new AI tool that everyone's going to have access to, who's auditing that access, making sure that that's documented, making sure that come when the SOC auditor walks in the door, you're ready because you already considered all those components of it. So GRC tooling is great. I would highly recommend that be something a business invest in, but having a GRC resource, someone whose job it is to audit prep, is going to make audits go much more smoothly.
Yeah, I mean, and we didn't have that to some degree. We kind of had to make it in what I would call like light version. But you're absolutely right. When we started like planning at least for quarterly, like just getting ahead of just making the evidence available, going like, well, we know this evidence is being asked every time, so we just grab it ahead of time. We get prepared for it. Then we're only dealing with whatever has changed or that was brand new and added at that time. And it just became repeatable and not a chore or a bear situation, whereas weighing us down, like we were just doing the job at that point. And then we could talk about in between of like, hey, we're doing it this way. Would this make more sense? Or should we also be doing, like, we started to get smarter and better and finding more creative, ways to make the business more secure, more compliant, and less risk, right? It's interesting when you plan for it in that way, and I imagine, obviously, GRC tooling makes it a significantly a different situation and much better, but there are even ways to do it without, I guess is the point, is at least trying to do something is better than nothing, and then eventually, yeah, getting an actual amazing GRC tool would make life so much better.
Yeah. And you sparked a thought in my mind. One of the things that techs hate is documentation. I don't know why we hate it. I don't know where the pain comes from, but it's something that is very important that a business should be looking into, especially a tech team should be looking into, is documenting everything that they can reasonably document, because you leave. And so when you leave and the next person has to come in and they have provided evidence for an audit, they don't know where to go. They don't know what was necessarily provided last year, things like that. Now, again, a GRC tool does all that for you, but good documentation, good organization, when you talk about saving your old audit evidence, things like that, I'll give everyone a much easier time of figuring out, well, what do I need to provide? And not provide too much. There are people we work with in the past that are very verbose with an auditor. And that's great when it's an internal auditor. You should absolutely be very verbose for an internal auditor. But an external auditor, you need to answer their question clearly, but only answer their question. And don't go offering things that you think might be the answer. If you don't know that's the answer, take the note and walk away and come back with the right answer. Don't guess.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, auditing your own tickets. Oh man, like how many times do we actually think that gets done? But it is like you're talking 100% is needed as well, because every single IT person I've ever met is like they just want to move on to the next thing and fix the next thing. So like I think it's just like, oh, but I'm done. Like now I have to go back through and note all this, and I spent 2 weeks on it. I don't remember it all. Yeah, I've heard it all for sure. I've been there. And at the same time, I might even create a poll on this particular question because I'm curious. I'm sure we've all done it, but those things that didn't get documented and you have left, and then it did come up, and there are still members of that team that you still are okay with. It's like, all right, well, don't tell them, but here's the answer. Do this so that you can get out of your jam because it's you, and take
Yeah,
care of it or what.
that's a huge no-no. I even with you, I mean, there was a ton of stuff that you were very important. And so losing you was very hard. But at the same time, you don't have any responsibility to that level, that business once you go. So I would I would struggle and suffer and cry at night, but I would figure it out because it wasn't your job to save me at that point. But yes, absolutely that sucks. And that brings up another really good thing with documentation though, is that when you take that extra minute, so you fix the ticket, done, wash your hands, go to the next ticket. If you then come back at the end of the week or the end of the month or whenever it is to redo those tickets, you start to see the patterns that maybe you don't see when you're doing the work. You know what? I constantly am resetting passwords for Slack. Why? And so that gives you something to now look into. You go, you know what? There's a problem in Slack. We have a firewall rule that's blocking password resets or whatever it is. But nope, another Slack one. I know how to fix this. I fix it. Off I go. Document that fix so the next person can also do that fix. But then when you start to review why or the tickets you closed or things like that, start to look for patterns. Oh, hey, you know what? I'm seeing a lot of people have an issue with this tool or with this website. I wonder why. And maybe that's escalating to another team. Or if you have good leadership, they tell you, hey, yeah, go run, go learn, go find out what's going on. And then you come back with, you know what? I've just saved the company $20,000 over the next 2 years with not having to answer these tickets. And that's the other thing that I think techs need advice on is to sell what they're doing. I hate metrics too. I hate documenting I spent 5 minutes on something. But when you go through and you're selling it to an executive board on why this is important to do, those metrics are the language that they speak. So I'm going to save the company 40 hours of man hours per week. That's a full-time head. If I'm saving a full-time head per week, that's 80 grand a year or it's 100 grand a year, whatever that timing is, by automating this particular thing. And that's how you get more budget to do more cool things, because tech keeps saving the company money. Every time they give the tech team $100,000, they somehow save the company $300,000. That's what an executive wants to see.
Yeah, and that those are the very conversations that would get the team to do more of the things that they didn't want to do. They wanted to do the fun, creative things. Like nobody wants to actually go in and log time, and it became a like, look, just best guess it, so I have something to have a conversation about. Because then, like to that point, you guys want this tool, or you want this particular thing, or you want to do that cool, fun project. This is how we get it. This is how we at least have a shot at trying to get it. They're not sitting in those accounting meetings going, okay, what do you want to do? No, no, no. If they see that there's a shot at like like to the point of like we're going to save a bunch of money, then I think that's a fair negotiation ask at that point, or a learning experience depending on your environment. But
Yeah.
we figure it out. What would you say the biggest mistakes are that you see companies make when they're preparing for their SOC 2 or PCI?
Waiting too long. They often you won't get a business that wants to do PCI without a client requiring it or a merchant bank requiring it. Same with the SOC 2. Until they have a contract that's demanding that they do a SOC 2 or an ISO or some other standard compliance, they don't do it. So there's no prep really that goes into it. It's okay, let's call an audit company, and then they get a document request, and then they start collecting evidence and just hoping that it goes. And then 6 months later, they still haven't completed the audit, or they've completed it with findings. And then no executive wants to have a SOC 2 that says there were deviations. They always want a clean SOC 2, which I totally get, but especially your first SOC 2, that's hard to do unless you prepped heavily for it. And most businesses, again, they don't start until they already have a deadline. So in order for this contract to get executed, we have to get a SOC 2. That means we only have 60 days. Well, I'm sorry, but it takes the SOC company 45 days just to do an audit of their own stuff. So you aren't going to make 30 days. What can we do in the meantime? What other controls can we show? But once a business gets beyond a certain size, and there's no magic number there, once they get beyond a certain size, they should absolutely be looking at what their competitors are providing when it comes to audits. And so whether that's muscle audits if you're in the lottery space, PCI audits if you're taking credit cards or providing services along the credit card route, that's what you should then be looking at. Okay, this is the type of audit we need to pass. Let's make sure all of our tooling as we go through keeps this in mind. And that's where, again, you don't have to be IT security to do this. You could absolutely be just an IT manager. Not just, that sounds terrible. You can be an IT manager who has a security mindset, but at the same time, when you get to the point where you're ready for the audit, having someone who's in either audit through GRC or having someone who does IT security is going to be invaluable and make things go much smoother.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of those situations, it just becomes they're looking at the cost of just doing it. And it becomes one of those risk register items where it's like, we didn't necessarily need it. So why put the cost into it? And I agree. Like if I were doing it and I knew that I was probably going to enter that space in the next year or whatever, it makes so much more sense to try to like gear up for it than to do the mad scramble. The last second jam it in game.
I equate it to restaurant health ratings. So if you have two restaurants that are the exact same menu and one has an A rating from the health board and one doesn't have a rating from the health board, which one are you going to? I mean, I would pay more for the A rated than I would for the non-A rated. And I would pay even less if I knew it was D rated. But if it hasn't been rated, then I'm not sure. Whereas A rated, I'm sure they're doing the right things they need to be doing for food safety and my own health. So that's where I want to go. And that's where it kind of goes back to what you're saying before. You can take this to sales. We are SOC 2 compliant. That's not easy. It costs money to do it. So building that process in and making it valuable to the business is really about communicating that value out to your customers.
I know that there are like, sales and tech, involved in certain spaces, but the weird thing that I've seen across my time anyways is just like tech and sales clashing all the time. And like you've already kind of hit on it a few times that they really can form a collaborative partnership that actually produces more value for the business if they find a way to actually work together. And, from a tech perspective, it's always like, well, sales doesn't understand or know. Well, then I'm always like screaming in my head. I'm like, well, then teach them. Like, then
Exactly.
sit down and give them a webinar, give them a one-on-one, give whatever it takes, write a document at that point, do whatever it takes to actually get them educated so like they understand what SOC 2 is and why that's important and why they can sell that. And now you are going to buy that SOC 2 product and not the one that might be starting to do it. I mean, the food analogy was a great one because I could get food poisoning maybe, or it looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to go over here and eat that one.
Yeah. No, and a lot of that, going back to the sales bit, sales will promise the moon and the stars to make the sale. That's what they do. That's how they're metriced. So I mean, it just like IT will complain, I don't know, I hate these metrics. Sales have the same complaint. They don't like to be metriced on things that they are beyond their control. But they then make a promise, and if they don't understand the amount of effort that dev team needs to put in to meet that, then that's where there's a breakdown. I've never met a sales guy. Yeah, I've never met a sales guy that would tell someone an out and out lie. I know they exist. I've just never met them. But make an out and out lie about something the company can or can't do or can do that they can't do if they understood what level of effort would go into that. And so that comes from the development manager or the product manager to explain to the salesperson, this is what we can do now. This is what our roadmap looks like. But anything beyond that is going to take us years to do, and communicating that in a way that they understand it is important. I've absolutely met sales guys at conferences that my favorite thing is, oh, that's on our roadmap. Like, okay, that means you don't have it, and I probably will never see it, but I'm glad it's on your roadmap.
Yeah, no, that is definitely a famous quote. But I think the point you're getting back to is if you have the communication and you form the relationship, then it might not be a situation that you feel they're out like, lying about it. They might bring it back to the table and say, hey, we have this killer deal and I understand where your positioning is. Is there any creative ways that we can do anything? And at that point, now you're collaborating and working together on a problem that could be best for business potentially, and trying to see if you can have a different outcome, instead of like, the sales guy sold this and put us in a bad situation and I told him no. And that's why you got to form the relationships. Like, that's one of the first things I try to do before anything else going anywhere, is just meet all the names and faces and see if we can have any kind of common ground across all the things, and then start connecting the dots of the spider web together, so that way we can all work as one, ideally, in a
Yeah,
perfect world.
ideally.
Ideally. How did working with major banks and auditors sharpen your executive communication skills?
Painfully. Practice and really good coaching. I can name the people that really helped me to understand how to communicate better. I'm not going to give last names because unlike you, I don't dox people. So John, Melissa, and Jessica really showed me how to communicate my point without being condescending, because I had the same disease that all techs seem to have, of that I felt like other people just didn't understand what I understood. So communicating in a clear, neutral tone that communicates the importance of why something needs to happen without scaring people is very difficult, especially when I'm get excited and I talk about the cool thing that AI can now do. And oh, by the way, these are the things that it can also do. And people go, I don't want AI. I'm like, no, no, no. You want AI. You just want it done well. You want good governance, good controls. AI can be very powerful and very helpful, but at the same time, don't give it all your HR data.
Or the hallucinations and whatnot, but yeah, definitely don't put all that stuff in there.
Yes, yes. That's one of the ones I love, the Ralph. You know what Ralphing is with AI? So it's when you feed AI its own vomit, so it's Ralphing. So you
Gotcha.
tell Claude is a great example. You tell Claude to code this thing, and then it doesn't work. And then you tell Claude, hey, your thing doesn't work. Go do it again. And it goes through and it fixes it, and it does so much better the second time. Well, you continue to iterate on that, and then by the third or fourth time, you have a working program. I did this for a car search. I wanted to compare different vehicles. I normally would spend a week or 2 weeks researching a car on cars.com, Auto Trader, wherever. I let Claude do it, and Claude had to write a program to do it because Claude can't directly search those sites. It wrote the code, and the code didn't work. So I said, all right, well, and I can't see the code. Claude wrote the code. So I told Claude, fix it. And Claude went through, and the second time it worked, but it looked awful. And so I said, Claude, nope, you're still wrong. I need it to look like this and do it again. And it came back. And the third time, I had a working car search that did a much better job than I would have, because it gained more information and it had insights that I couldn't have done only because I don't know cars. So I would have had to take it to a mechanic and say, all right, well, hey, review my code for me and tell me what fields I'm missing. Claude had already included those. And so it worked very well. But yeah, that is one of the tools that AI is good for, is to rewrite its own stuff, or to search through a big bucket of data that doesn't contain PII or business sensitive information. Feed it your error logs. As long as it's locked down and has guardrails so that your data isn't leaving, it's going to do a much better job. I'm reviewing MDR tools right now. Every one of them has AI in it. And that's one of those really good use cases for AI, to dig through mountains of logs. And it's terrible because it is absolutely going to eliminate security analyst jobs. Not that there won't be any, but you'll need far fewer to do the same level of work that you used to do. But that's the future. So now those people need to go and get another skill that they can then add to their current knowledge base and make themselves even more valuable to the business. But it's going to make it really difficult for I say kids, but they're 18-year-olds or adults that are entering college right now. Those entry level jobs in tech, whether it's help desk or security analyst roles, are going to be much harder to get. You're going to need to build a skill set or a specialization, like we were talking about before, building a specialization that, whether it's a tool, Salesforce, or it's a skill set, forensics, that's where your value is going to continue to grow.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was the term, because I've had so many painful nights of like screaming at my AI of like, dude, you wrote this wrong again. Like, are you even listening? Like, I don't even know what's in there. It probably thinks I'm a lunatic, because I'd get mad and just talking to a robot back. But yeah, yes, 100%. I probably should have like just did it myself in some cases, because I spent too much time getting it to eventually do it. And in a lot of cases it would.
One of my favorites, 60% of people, when polled, say they're polite to AI. And
Not
of those,
anymore.
right? Of those people, when they were polled, the vast majority of them said they're polite so that when the AIs take over, they're killed last.
I mean, yeah, well, I guess we'll test that theory because I'm going to be first wave at this point.
I always tell Alexa thank you when she tells me the weather, man. I don't want to die.
We'll find out. I hope not soon enough because I might be first. Like I said, first wave might be out. So let's talk a little bit about your current role. So at Curve, you're building a comprehensive security strategy. What does building a modern security program from the ground up look like?
Well, just to be clear, it's not from the ground up. I have a solid foundation from the people who've been doing the job. I'm taking over from the group of people that wore many hats in order to just focus on doing more with security. And it's the same thing. It's like every other company I've ever walked into in that regard, in that we're looking to make even more improvements off of the good jobs that other people have already done. I've yet to walk into a company that had nothing, and I'm glad. They probably couldn't afford me, but the reality is that when you come into a place, the first step is to be open to learning. You mentioned something that is also one of my tenets: is I get to know everybody. Even if I don't think my job is going to directly touch your job, I want to get to know you so that when you have a problem, you can come to me. And I think that's critically important. One of the first things I learned as a tech was the walk around. I'd come in the morning, I'd get my coffee, I'd sit down, I'd check my mailbox, answer any critical emails I had. But then the next thing I do would get up and walk around so that I could see everybody in the building and they could see me. And the number of times someone would bring me a problem that they hadn't emailed to me and allow me to fix it before it became a critical issue, that's where that value is. And so I no longer walk around the building because we don't have buildings anymore, but I make sure I introduce myself to everybody. And so when they have a problem, when they have a pain, the sales team has a painful process they hate doing, they know that I'm someone they can approach and bring that problem to, and I'm not going to bite their head off. They get to see the nerd stuff behind me. I alleviate all those concerns by having that interaction with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think another thing that particular thing does when you get to know everybody is you listen, and they might not either be aware of maybe even a problem they're describing because they're just not thinking about it's not their skill set or whatever. And now you identified something that you can help solve for them or make their day or life better at the end of the day, or produce value out of it. It might have been like even a potential idea just because you took the time to meet somebody on top of all those other things that you said that are also just as important. So I mean, it's something that I do. I mean, I do this naturally anyway. Wherever I go, everybody jokes that I can't shut up, right? So like that's just going to happen anyways. But it has absolutely produced value, for the business because of those situations and scenarios.
Yeah, well, the extroverted IT guy. I mean, that is absolutely your moniker, and it fits you. And I will tell you that that's one of the things that makes, especially a manager or director, incredibly valuable, is that ability to communicate, that desire to communicate. It's not just that you can communicate; it's that you want to talk. I'm not as extroverted as you, but I can turn it on for executive board meetings, but it exhausts me. It absolutely saps my energy to sit through a 3-day executive talk, and I talk for an hour of that, and I'm paying attention the whole time, but that interaction, that one-on-one is harder for me. You seem to thrive on it. You come out of those meetings with 10,000 good ideas and you're running at Mach 5. That's one of the reasons why I loved working with you, because you would have that energy from that meeting that I would need to then soak up some of that energy in order to move forward. But then a week later, I'm ready, and I'm ready to dive in and do all those things.
Yeah, there was I mean, how many times where the Jay just needs a minute at the hotel? We'll just get an early beer or something, and then he'll show up later.
Exactly.
But but yeah, I mean, I get that. My wife's the same way, clearly. Like, can do it, and then eventually just leave me alone. I got to sit in this room for the rest of the night. But yeah, no, it's rare in IT. It's one of the reasons why I named but my particular future business that'll be in the ad coming out a certain way, because I've been called a unicorn so many times in this industry, and maybe finally found a creative way to actually utilize that, because I was labeling it as a derogative negative thing because I could never find something to make it work. So maybe I finally found something. But how do you partner with engineering and DevOps without becoming a bottleneck?
You don't. You have to be a bit of a bottleneck, but what you do is you make that bottle valuable and more than just 10 cents here in Michigan. Thank you. They always have the same thing that we talked about before. They have good intentions, but they can't always execute on those intentions. And so what you do is you make yourself valuable to them. So all that tech debt that they know exists and they wish they could go and tackle, you now give them the tools they need to do that. You give them the contract language they need to get there. You give them the compliance language that they need to address those tech debt pieces. Because when they're fixing old patches that haven't been applied, or they're fixing a code that's failing a pen test or whatever it is, they can fix the other things that are attached to that too, that they wish they didn't have to worry about. They wish they could sleep better at night knowing that everything was secure. So you give them that. And yes, you end up adding process that adds delay. And there's not really a great way around that. If you have good security, you're going to have bottlenecks. You need checkpoints, but they don't have to be painful. You don't have to make them a chore. You just need them to exist in a process that everybody can repeat. And I personally feel when I have a process that I can follow, that gives me a positive outlook on what I'm doing the next day. I know I've got 10 things to do. Once I do those 10 things, I'm good to go. It doesn't feel like I have to work. I never get anything done. I never get to the top of the mountain. There's just another mountain to get to. So having that process in place, I've cleared the hurdle, I'm on to the next thing. And that's one of the things that Agile, I love the idea of Agile. Let me say that. Agile is better than Waterfall. But the benefit that you had in Waterfall was you got the done. You got the woohoo win moment. Agile, depending on how frequent your sprints are, a lot of teams don't seem to get to that where they feel done. They wrap up one sprint, they execute that code, and they're immediately working on the next sprint because they've got a backlog of 500 items that they're never going to complete. And every time they complete 100 of them, 200 more appear on the backlog list. So it doesn't feel like a release is really happening where you are finishing this code is done, this is version 1, good. So again, I don't dislike it, but it's one of those things where you need to give techs time to review and document. And that's where security can help DevOps teams, giving them that time to document. They can't just do 40 hours of work. They need to do 30 hours of work and 10 hours of documentation. Or that's not really the right mix, but I think you get the point.
Yeah, I mean, I think Agile enables the classic tech behavior of just constantly moving on to the next thing and never stopping and celebrating or like basking in their accomplishment or their glory. And it can be dangerous. I mean, the one thing I know that is available in Agile are the ceremonies, right? Like they can actually have the conversations or celebrations or little celebration parties. Like I heard, some of the projects my wife's been a part of at other companies where they actually did that, and I was like, that's excellent, because then it kind of does give you the stop still while continuing the continuousness of Agile, but you can actually celebrate. You can make sure that you leave that one to enter the next one, because the continuous over and over again absolutely is rundown behavior.
Yeah, I can tell you, I have a friend who's very much an Agile person, and hello, Kim. She will tell you that most companies just don't do Agile right. And she's absolutely right. Most companies have taken the things that they want from Agile without really investing in what makes Agile a good way of developing code or developing any process. So yes, as much as I poo-poo it, it's because most businesses don't do it the right way.
It's super true. I don't know why some descriptions say have PMP, and then you get there and it's like, this has nothing to do with the PMP. I don't know why I needed it for this, but all right. So I know how to do it.
We've talked about that. It's because they're trying to hire Bob. And I mean, anybody who's in the job search, you're seeing this now. It's the job requires a set of skills that just don't exist naturally in any human being other than Bob. Bob had that set of skills because Bob grew up in the company. Bob worked there for 9 years, and he was PMP and Cisco and IAM Radius expert. And Bob was the perfect fit for the company. And Bob has left. Bob's retired. Bob won the lotto, whatever it is. And now they're trying to hire Bob again. And it just, that doesn't exist. And so I encourage people to apply for jobs, even if you don't have every skill listed, because they will eventually realize that we're not going to find anybody who's perfect. We need to find someone who's close and allow them the time to train to it, or we need to hire multiple people. And that's often what I see happen. You get one talented person leave and the business kind of waves out of the way. We reclaim that salary now from that guy who'd been there 9 years. Okay, but we need to hire 3 people to do what he was doing or she was doing. That's going to cost us way more money. And it's going to take them 6 months to get up to speed and be ready to do that job. So all those projects that you were counting on to be done in the roadmap are now delayed 6 months. We should have just paid that person, or we should have done whatever it is that it took to keep that person in the seat.
Bob was a unicorn.
Yeah.
Already noticing that what Bob was and being called it all of my career. At the same time, Bob is gone, to your point, and that's one of the classic things. Like, it's weirdly, especially in this market, that I'm noticing, like, jobs are staying open, or postings are staying open way too long because they're trying to find that particular person with the skill set, and the job should be too. I don't know how many times, like, it's one of my personal pet peeves. I'm seeing IT director or IT manager hands on. Those are not the same. Like, those are 2 different skill sets, and they're not gonna do a good job at either one of them. They're gonna try to do them both and not do them well. That would be like trying to be the leader, but also be the senior engineer. Like, that's insane. Those are 2 very different skill sets, and I will champion that till the end of the day, and that's called, you need a bigger budget, or you need fractional or advisor or somebody. Like, you need to divide that out. What you really need is the engineer, and then somebody to kind of help guide until you have the budget to bring in an IT leader.
Yeah.
That's what you need.
And the thing is, that is also another Bobism. So you started with a company when there were 6 people and you were the only IT guy. And then as the company grew, they promoted you. They made you IT manager. You didn't have anybody reporting to you, but you had IT manager. And then maybe the company grows a little more. Maybe now you get another IT guy, but now they want to promote you too. So now you're IT director. You still have one direct report. You don't write any of the processes. You do all the processes. You chat GPT to every policy in the company, but you don't really understand how to write a solid procedure. Or maybe you do. But either way, when the time comes that you leave, they're like, oh, well, we need another IT director. Okay, but Bob still did all of the access in Entra. He still managed all the installation of Salesforce. He still did all those things. So now that's what we need. Oh, we just need a hands-on IT manager. No, you need a systems admin, and then you need someone to do all the other things that orchestrated and made the business run. So you do need an IT manager, or maybe an IT director, depending on what you're looking to do. In my personal opinion, and maybe this is just me talking through the wall, the title of director is someone who should be strategically planning for the future of the business. They should be interfacing with executives and driving growth in a way that is responsible and beneficial to the business and overcoming those 3-year problems. An IT manager should be handling the day-to-day management of the process and tooling. And then the systems admin or seniors or engineers or whatever you got at that point, they're the ones that should be actually doing the things that need to happen on a daily basis. So if your company isn't ready for a director level person, that's fine. Hire an IT manager, and someone else on the board has to then do that director level job. You can't expect the IT manager to do it and do day-to-day operations. And the same thing, once you hire a director level person, they shouldn't be writing firewall rules. I absolutely can, but do you want to pay me my salary to write rules? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. You want to pay someone my salary to drive the business to success in a secure and responsible way. And let's go get the right people we need to reset passwords and write rules or audit access requests, things like that.
There's been so many topics where I've been thinking about how do you drive the conversation, and it's kind of simplistic when you break it down, you think about it. This all comes back to value and money. So, I mean, you just said it. Do you want to pay me a lot to do something that's quite honestly cheaper for somebody to do, or do you want to pay me a lot to create way more money, for the business? That's why you're paying me a lot, and you start breaking it down like that. I think some companies have, like, what they need to have is the mirror scenario where they need to actually look in the mirror and be like, we should reevaluate now that Bob is gone. Does this make sense anymore for us to do it this kind of way? We don't got to worry about feelings or longevity or tenure or anything. Now it's just a new opportunity to reassess what we should do going forward. That's really ultimately what needs to happen, and be open to whatever that lands at that point.
you've got a business background. That's something that isn't just true for replacing people. That's true for any business that's building something new. The tendency is to just answer yes when the client asks, "Hey, can you do this?" Hey, you already have the best in class firewall. You've created a strong network firewall that does amazing things. By the way, do you have the ability to do a cross network VPN? No, I build a firewall. I can connect to a VPN, but I build a firewall. Oh, we really want a cross network VPN. We want to be able to have every user have a VPN in the system. I can build that. Okay. But that's not what you do. That's not what you're specialized in. So when you do that as a business, you add on programs and processes that maybe aren't making the company any money, but are costing the company money because you have to secure them. You have to spend development hours developing them. So answering yes to all those questions isn't always the best thing for the business. And a business should take a moment to reevaluate. Are we making money from all the things we're doing? Because there are absolutely going to be loss leaders. There's going to be things you do because it's going to get you into an environment. It's going to get you into an area that you don't currently have any access to, but you need to go into that with your eyes open. This is going to cost us money for 3 to 5 years. After 3 to 5 years, we're going to need to reevaluate. Do we want to keep doing it, or are we going to cut that business, spin it off, do whatever? And that's where especially larger corporations do a better job of that. They don't have the personal investment that you get when you have a small, I won't say startup, but a mid-sized business that loves what they're doing and wants to be the everything for every client. They don't realize that maybe the best thing is to limit what they're doing and do it the best in the environment.
I do think that's where somebody with a business particular background who also is in IT helps you, because if you aren't reevaluating that, or you're not able to translate that into how it is creating value, then are you likely to get it, or are you likely not to get it? And then now you're just a cost sink department, versus now you can actually think on your feet and actually show the business speak of, yes, we are absolutely dumping money today. We're not going to see the return on value in years 2 and 3, but maybe year 4, 5, 6, or this is why it's needed, because if not, we can't do this particular business line. Well, okay, well, now we want the business line, because the business line is going to generate millions of dollars. Okay, well, that's how you translate that. There's a lot of individuals that I do think that are in leadership roles that should absolutely like sink their teeth into some business-oriented classes and just try to understand a little bit of business, to try to understand a little bit about their culture and dynamic of where they work, because they can enable and create even more value by doing that.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
And as much as we've talked about good communication from security to other departments, that it goes both ways. So business leadership needs to be communicating well back to security, IT, all of us. If we're not meeting their expectations, if we're not communicating in a way that they understand, it can't just be, I notice that I'm getting told no when I think there should be a yes. You need to give me feedback on the why it's a no. What thing did I ask for that you don't see the value in, so that I can reframe and explain it in a way that you understand the value in. I'm not going to bring things to you that I don't think are good. I'm not just going to ask for $100,000 for a tool if I don't think there's value in that tool. But if I failed to communicate that to you, give me that feedback and I will come back around and explain it in a way that I think is more palatable. Or maybe I'm wrong. I'm open to that option too. Maybe I misunderstand where the market is and it's not so much you don't want to, we can't afford to. Great. Then you know what? I will go try to find something that maybe doesn't have all the features that I think we need, but is still an improvement over what we're doing today. But that communication has to be two-way.
Yeah, no, no, you're right. Just a simple no doesn't give me anything to go off from at that point. Like, I'm now scrambling of like, why was it no? And then I'm into the madness of my own mind. But if it's the general direction of like, yeah, the market's moved, or no, we don't have the funding, or just no, and like maybe you can't give me the full whatever because maybe you're not ready to from that particular strategic decision, but at least like a, well, no, because this particular thing, it's like, oh, okay, funding, cool, like you said, I'll just see what else I can bring to the table. Then are you guys open if I can find something that would fit that? Yeah, we're creative creatures. So going to fast forwarding a little bit, going into a topic that is super hot and super needed in discussion, which is AI security and emerging risk. What does AI security actually mean in practice?
So AI security is a wonderful marketing term. Again, it's cloud, but securing your AI, I think, is something that we talked about separate from this, which is really good governance. You need to make sure that if your business is going to leverage AI, which it should, not every business, I guess. If you're making cookies, maybe you don't need to leverage AI, but you might. It depends on what your logistics transport looks like, but you need to take the thought process to the executive level of what data are we going to expose? How are we going to expose it? And what are the use cases that our employees are going to be using it for? And how are we going to monitor and protect that? Far too often, AI is something that is shadow IT'd. So it's just being utilized. Your front desk person is using AI to make sure that the calendars for 10 executives are all being properly organized. What you don't realize is that in the calendar is a ton of sensitive information. The CEO is meeting with potential clients. That's great information that you don't want data leaked out. So having good governance and good control is critical when you're building out AI usage across your business. That being said, every tool that you see, at least I see in the security space, has AI in it somewhere. And that doesn't mean they actually have one. AI is an AI is as machine learning. Getting off of that, what they mean by AI, they aren't always utilizing it in a way that makes the most sense. They are utilizing it to put it on their marketing moniker without actually giving it the proper training, the door with it. They're using your data to make it better. The number of times I've sat down with vendors who told me, "Oh yeah, we use AI to evaluate this particular thing." I'm like, okay, great. Well, where did you train it on? Or other customers' data. Maybe you don't tell the security guy that. Thank you for being honest, but you know what? You should have trained it on dummy data. You should have trained it on publicly available data. You should have trained it on other stuff. I don't want to know that you trained it on your other customers' data, because now that means that I might have access to it. So when your AI tells me that it detected that something odd happened in my environment, and I query it to say, tell me about where you got that information, and it tells me, oh, well, our IBM process identified this particular issue. Okay, I know IBM's one of your clients and their data lives in your tool set.
Yeah, it absolutely is in contracts all the time. I just heard about a couple contracts from a couple acquaintances, and it very much is exactly that. It very much is in there. It's a scary, I mean, it's really a scary time to be a cybersecurity anything at the moment. If you break it down, just knowing like the rule of AI is breaking all of the rules of security and concept of just like vastness of data information sharing. Scary. But at the same time, like you said, like what is it actually doing? What is it really connected to? It's a fancy marketing term at the end of the day. The things that scare me, honestly, is like the more embedded, things like Copilot gets with like your email or other things. And if you just didn't turn off the option, now that calendar situation came across the entirety of all of my data. You not only have my calendar, you have my email, you have all of my contacts, everything else, because you just turned it on and called it AI. We're good. We got AI, guys. Go use it.
Yeah. Well, and that you just brought up another one is putting it into your contracts. When you are utilizing a tool, whether it's an AI centric tool or something else, make sure that it's in your contract how they're using that data. I think we're all kind of used to the data access agreements. So when you sign up for AWS or whatever, they promise not to utilize your data for nefarious purposes or marketing or whatever. That same kind of thing should be in every contract that you'd use for a tooling like that. But I'm going to draw parallels between AI and cloud. I'm that old. I was here when cloud became a thing, and cloud is just another person's network, or at least that's how it started. And now it's something much more valuable with microservices and segmentation and things like that. It can do things that you would have struggled to do with your own hardware sitting in a data center somewhere. Not just for economies of scale, but from just the tooling that has now added into or been designed for the cloud. I remember having to segment network RAM on a system in order to build out processes like that. And quality of service on networks was something that once it actually came in a firewall was kind of earth shattering, where you could identify which servers needed to have more bandwidth than others. It wasn't just a flat network where the directory services could eat up all the bandwidth because it was doing an update across all the machines and suddenly your website went down. But all that required very intelligent, creative people to evaluate how the systems were running and find ways to think differently about how those systems are designed to be a cloud versus being hardware. The same thing is happening right now with AI. You have, and it's surprising to me, and maybe I'd love to ask you this question. Why is it that the new innovations that are coming out seem to come from researchers in universities and not from businesses that would want to be leveraging that technology? There was something that just came out recently around identifying how cloud infrastructure AIs make decisions. And it came from a researcher in a university in China around networking and not from Palo Alto or Cisco or Fortinet. Not that they don't come up with innovations, but these really, I won't call it earth shattering, but these real true game changing innovations often are not coming out from businesses that are going to profit from them. So why do you think that the investment isn't going in there and instead it's going to universities?
Because researchers get paid to do research or are able to do it for free versus the business wants to make money off the idea and they're not going to sell it unless they get paid to sell it. I mean, that's probably honestly the path, but yeah, I mean, you're right. The places that are going to know the most are the businesses trying to do the things. They're trying to make the improvements in logistics or in accounting or finance or whatever. Like whatever the business is, those are the ones that I want to know more about if I'm in that line of business than some researcher from a university, unless I am a university, like, quite frankly. I would think, anyways, but probably monetary. Everything in the world has monetary, so probably that. But it's a great question. I'm actually probably going to look that up later. You've put something in my mind that won't go away until I know the answer.
Sorry.
So no, it's a great question. I would love to know that answer as well. But I mean, probably monetary. I mean, what is AI doing right now? Every decision being made with it is monetary, right? Like, oh, we don't need the 3,000 people we can let go because we can save all that expense because AI can do it, or so we're selling, or whether it can or it can't. But now the budget's better and record profits or even more record profits. I
Yeah.
don't know. Seems like it'd go down that path.
I look at like competitions like Pwn to Own, and years ago, it was not only researchers, but it was primarily researchers. So students, professors in colleges that would be writing up these vulnerabilities that were out there and then
Mhm.
bringing them to the show and showing it. And now you get companies like Mandiant and other cybersecurity environments out there that they use that format to sell their product. If you know when it comes to threat hunting, you can go to Mandiant. That is valuable as a business. So again, it goes back to that sales side of selling your cybersecurity stance and proving your trustworthiness to your clients. That's how you do that, is by showing you have good cybersecurity, you're innovating, you're thinking, you're anticipating problems before they become problems. And that comes from investing in cybersecurity in your environment. Now, not every business needs to do that. Again, if you're making cookies, maybe you don't need to be the top cybersecurity professional in the world. But when you talk about your business is securing networks or securing data, if you aren't in those and not having those conversations with your IT people, if you're not giving them the time to learn and want to be a part of things like that, that's where you're missing as a leader. You should be trying to find that time for them to learn and continue their career. And it's good, healthy. It prevents burnout. Your people don't feel like they have to do 80-hour weeks in order to just stay on par. You need more people.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great thing. The AI can come into play and actually help and enable the non 80 hours. Or talked about this in the last episode as well, is just the good healthiness. Like at hour 80, you're nowhere near as good as hour 3 or
Yeah,
hour
not at
2.
all.
So getting out of that mindset and letting AI go ahead and actually take care of some of that would actually be a benefit. So how do you actually balance innovation velocity with responsible governance?
So velocity always wins. That's a fact of business. If you're not first to market, you're not capturing that business at a time. All that comes from good planning coming in at the beginning. You can have incredible velocity if you have good testing, tooling, unit testing, if you have the right manpower, people power, not manpower, you have the right people power in place, the right tooling that you need from a cybersecurity perspective to automate as much as you can. That allows you to maintain that velocity while still staying secure. But if you're missing any of those, you are either going to accept a massive amount of risk, which as a business is absolutely sometimes the case. You have to, and then you need to catch back up. You need to then take time after you completed, after you delivered, you need to be taking that time to go back through and fix it and make sure that it's done securely. My favorite is CAB. So change advisory boards. I don't know anybody other than cab managers that love cabs, but every time I write the policy for the cab, one of the things that is critically important is to write the emergency procedures for what happens when you don't have time to do cab, because you won't always have time to do cab. And so having that retrospective to go through and say, well, we did this because the client needed it. They needed it now, whether it was a security incident or it was just that they were trying to make it to a trade show and needed a demo that worked. We didn't have time to put it through the full everything we did. So we followed our process. We didn't include any client data. It's a demo. We documented everything we did. There's tickets for every bit of it. And so now it's after the show. Now let's go through and verify every ticket was done correctly. Make sure we didn't add any vulnerabilities into place when we did this. That's where having good processes and strong people really save you. So you get that velocity, but you do it in a secure way.
Yeah, the going back part and making sure that you didn't, and actually combing through it, such a glossed over thing sometimes, but that's where, like, you're absolutely right. Like, if you plan for it and, like, okay, keep the business going because that's the mission, but now that it is over, yeah, we go back through or closing the loop, boarding up whatever was exposed, etc. That's what actually, like you said, good experienced individuals who know what they're looking for and understand keeping the business going, but now able to limit your risk exposure that you accepted during that short window. That's so valuable at the end of the day.
Yeah, they said I've yet to find a business that doesn't need an emergency procedure. I know we worked with companies that they did 2 releases a year. They still need an emergency procedure. Something
Yeah.
goes wrong, something breaks in the middle of the night. You still need to fix it now. You can't wait 6 months for the next release schedule to push it out. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. So moving forward to CISSP talk. So you're a CISSP, and you were kind enough to endorse me. What does the CISSP represent to you beyond the credential?
So I learned more than I thought I would doing a CISSP. By the time I did my CISSP, I'd been in the industry for more than a decade doing security. Again, starting at Pentest, working my way all the way up. I thought I knew security. And I did, but what I didn't know was the breadth of security. There are so many different ways of doing the same thing. There's so many different paths to the same goal. And CISSP taught me each of those, which enables me now to sit down at any business I go to and understand, one, why they've done what they've done up to this point, and then two, how to get them where they need to get to. It gives you, it's just like ITIL in that it gives you a language that you can speak to communicate to other people who maybe they don't have an ITIL or maybe they don't have CISSP, but it gives you the different methods of speaking to them to gain whatever it is you're trying to gain, whether that's better cybersecurity or better IT processes. That's where I found the value in CISSP. And it's really nice to have it on your resume. It means something because it's not easy. I'm not going to call out any particular cert that's easy to get, but there are certs out there that are super easy. You watch an hour-long video, you answer 4 questions. CISSP is something that you can attest to. It takes weeks of reading and understanding, even for someone who's already got a really strong tech background. And even then, it's not a guarantee that you're going to pass. But again, failure is always an option. And don't stop there. Go back and do it again, because you probably are going to pass it the second time. And if you don't, that's fine. Failure is always an option. What did you learn? Do it a third time and just keep going until you get there. Maybe testing isn't your thing. And if testing's not your thing, that's okay. CISSP does not mean not getting a CISSP doesn't mean you're not a security professional. It just means you didn't get the cert. You need to come up with some other way to demonstrate your knowledge. So maybe that's starting a podcast.
I think I was thinking about this and it kind of clicked in my head while you're speaking, well, how I'd rebuttal that. And you are absolutely right. It is a very unique exam in the way it goes about it and the amount of depth the amount of domain span, I would say. I believe the quote is a mile long and an inch deep. And when I was going through it, it felt kind of like insurmountable, like there was so much stuff. But then as somebody with ADHD, I was like, awesome, there's so many things to play with. And I think that's probably ultimately what worked for me. And then actually getting it, because I went into it like that was the one that scared me, that I worked 4 years towards and getting all my other certifications up to. That was truly the gold star at the top of the Christmas tree for me, to achieve. Then I did it and I was like, after the shock wore off, I thought about like, it really wasn't that bad. I kind of killed it, really. Like at the end of the day, because like it stopped at 100. I passed right away. All the training and the algorithm worked like fantastic. But all I really actually got from that, like with the credentials and everything, but I got a bunch of knowledge. And the one thing about knowledge is like you have knowledge, great. But the reality is with all the certifications, and I've seen this argument all over the place, and I've chimed in a few times, that being somebody who has a ton of them, they're great on paper, but when push comes to shove, do you have the knowledge to get the actual job done that is being asked of you at that point in time? And that's where I'd totally agree to say it doesn't matter what is behind my name. You could write whatever, but if I can't help your business provide the value at the end of it, then it didn't mean anything.
Yeah. Well, and I'll add to that in that I've never gotten a job because I have a CISSP. I don't know that I never missed a job because they're missed. I don't get feedback, unfortunately, but I don't get the job because I have a CISSP. I get a job because I have a really good interview. But getting to that interview is where that certification helps you. It gets you past the initial HR screen. It gets you on the radar. And then when you have that conversation with people, that's where a solid technical background shines. Even if it's not a technical interview, they will know that you know what you're talking about. And you demonstrate that by having conversations. And there are techs out there, we know a couple that are just not great talkers. They struggle to communicate the level of knowledge that they have, even though it's immense. They struggle to communicate the level of knowledge that they have. Their interview is a difficult thing for them, but a good tech leader, a good tech manager sees good. They see that skill set. They talk to them about what kind of programs did you manage? What processes did you write up? What automations did you create? And you get them talking, and then you see that knowledge is there. And that's where, again, AI will never replace a good HR person and a good tech manager. It just won't. It can filter through resumes faster than I can, but it can't find talent that's going to last at a company. It's going to fill the spot, but that person's going to leave in 6 months because it's not the job for them. It's not the right fit. They don't have the right personality. They don't fit the culture, or they just are looking for the next thing. They want out of where they're at and they'll take anything. I get it. I've been there. That's how it works sometimes. But yeah, you want someone who is invested in your business and wants to see your business succeed. They have to buy in. That's true for any job. They have to buy in. If you're hiring people that just meet the criteria and they're not invested in the business, then you are not going to have a strong.
Yeah, I think when you were talking about IT individuals, I went classic IT, because that's what a lot of individuals who aren't in IT would associate. They're the robot in the shadows or the closet or in the basement or whatever. And that's true. Like they're the people who are actually the highly intelligent individuals that I'm asking, like, okay, what are our options to fix this? And then I'm becoming your translator to go to the business to translate on behalf of them, because their skill set is to go fix and find creative solutions there. My skill set is to go sit in the room with you while we figure out how to make sure that we're keeping the money flowing, and making sure the lights stay on. So there are two different skill sets, and I don't think that actually gets talked about enough. Now that you bring it up, it's a good point of being able to play both parts in that particular role. I don't want them to be in front of people speaking, quite frankly. I want them to be able to speak to, us as leaders, to be able to actually find a creative solution that we can do. I mean, if they ever get there, fantastic. The ability to do that. I've taken a few of them along with me that I thought could, and like, hey, sit here and listen. And then like now you understand why I might ask you certain questions, because now you just got experience of it being asked to us. I think it's a great training thing, if you're trying to bring somebody into leadership. But
So
yeah,
on that real quick, I hate to disagree with you, but I love to disagree with you.
well, I love it.
I think you have to push them out of that comfort zone. I agree with you completely. You should bring them along and you should encourage it. expose them to as much as you can reasonably expose them to without making them feel pressured to do something that they're completely not prepared for. But encouraging them to prepare for it, encouraging them to lead a meeting. When you go on vacation, tell them, hey, you know what? I'm going on vacation for a week, but this meeting still has to happen. I need you to lead it, and giving them enough time to get ready for it. And then warning the other executives saying, hey, by the way, Bob's going to do the meeting. Be easy on him. But at the same time, ask them the same questions you asked me. Getting them the exposure, pushing them out of their comfort zone is the difference between a coaching leader and just a team leader. So I think a coaching leader is very important, especially in developing tech talent. So you're not wrong, but I would encourage you to push people to do stuff that maybe they're not ready for. Again, failure is always an option.
No, I think you're gonna be massively disappointed 'cause I don't disagree with with the statement. There's some obvious individuals that I've seen that are like, oh yeah, they're just not going to get that skill in their arsenal. Those are the ones that I'm like, yeah, we can keep back there. I've absolutely taken individuals. My favorite story that I tell sometimes of like, yeah, we have to do all the things. This is what all the job entails. So one of those fun stories was in a audit that's our I don't know if people who haven't been in them, newsflash, they're boring as heck. Um, and this particular individual fell asleep at the table that was supposed to be learning with me, and I'm literally kicking him under the table to wake him up. It's one of my favorite stories. We joke about it still to this day, but he was still capable of doing it and should have done it. Like, yeah, that's 100%. The person who can't speak, like just normal human speak, I guess. We might just better let him be in the back room and, playing with the cables and pushing the buttons because he's amazing at that. And we're okay with it.
Yeah,
That's where I'm
I'm not
going.
saying to ever like hold someone back because that isn't their thing. Some people are just engineers. That's just what they are.
For
They
sure.
never want to do more than that. They want to be the world's greatest engineer. That's wonderful. But even the world's greatest engineer, I want him or her to be able to train the next world's greatest engineer. So yeah, I'm not going to maybe put you in front of executives, but I'm going to ask you to do a lunch and learn from the IT team. I'm going to ask you to build on your current skill set to make yourself more valuable and it's something you and I talk about all the time. I can't promise this is the only job you're ever going to have. I can't promise the company's going to be here tomorrow. So what do you need to make you successful in your next job? And if that means that I'm preparing you for interviews, but I'm doing it in a way that I'm having you do lunch and learns, or I'm forcing you to document all the projects you've completed and keep that documentation so that when something goes wrong, if something goes wrong, you then can go use that to get your next job. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make you a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm going to explain why. I'm not just going to do it maliciously. I'm not the devil, but I'm going to explain to you why it's important. And hopefully, even if just like children, if you don't listen to me at the time, but a couple of those words float around in your head, and then when something goes wrong, you go, "Oh man, I remember Jay told me about that." That's all I want. I'm hopeful that you are successful. If you've ever worked for me in the past, I want you to succeed. I want you to be super successful. I want you to have my job. I think I told you that like a year in, you're like, I'm like, well, what do you want for your career? Like, oh, I want to do this, this, and this. Like, great. I want you to have my job. I want you to be a director. I want you to take this over so that I can go on and do more cool things, and you can be here and do cool things too. And I think that that's the attitude that a good leader should have, of preparing their people for what they maybe don't feel like they can do, but encouraging them to try stuff that they find scary.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that either. It's 100% what I say is like if I'm worth my salt and you take my job and you've ascended, you've gotten the skill sets, right timing, all those things like align, and it's time for you to take that. Then if I did anything, they'll find me a new home, or I don't know, about 20 years in, you find a new home, and those things do happen. The days of staying at one place are extremely rare. Would love to experience some of that, but maybe that's just not in the cards for some of us, and you just make the best case as you go along. And I've been blessed to run into enough people that have probably needed some sort of like mentoring or needed the skill sets of how to get to the next thing because they didn't have a great mentor along the way. That's one thing that I say early on when I talk to younger kids just starting out in their first job. I wish that I had what we're talking about right now then, because maybe I would have been further along. But my goal now is to make sure that at my age, when you get there, you're way past where I'm at. That's passing it down to the next wave of the generation. So yeah, we're same wave there.
Yeah. And I find that funny, something you mentioned that careers have changed. I agree with you. I encourage new techs to be open to changing jobs. That's how you're going to raise your salary. That's how you're going to get skills. It's how you're going to move your career forward. Then you get to a middle ground where you've got the skills. You are a specialist now. And now you might stay 9, 10, 12 years at a job. Other things, COVID, thank you, will come along and may disrupt that. But that's something you should still be preparing for. You should never be stopping learning new things. But then once you get to an executive level, you need to be prepared for executive changes. I don't anticipate I will ever be in a career. One, I plan to retire before 20 years, but I doubt I'll ever have a 20-year career at this point. I'm hopeful to be at a company long enough to make a really solid change, push them forward, get them to a place where they are comfortable and ready. And then if something changes, I'm open to move into something new. I'm just now at this company. I've been here less than 2 months now, a little more than 2 months now, maybe. I hope to be here forever. I never want to leave, but I accept that business changes. And so if my skill set no longer matches what the business needs to move forward, I don't take that personally. I want everybody who's working for me to move up and take my spot. That's the way it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, my time at Iris seems like such a long time, but it was actually a year and a half. It wasn't that long at all. But I look at it too. Business, what you just described is exactly what happened. Like the entire C-suite, but I think one has now changed out. Every single leader under a lot of those hierarchies that I can recall are gone. Like it just whatever changed out, different directions, everything. And that was an extreme learning experience for me because I didn't catch the wave. Looking back at it, though, there was so many signs that I should have seen. So I learned a lot, but I never once was upset about it in the end. Like, yeah, maybe, things could have went a little bit different on the last convo or whatever. Like, okay, but did I learn and did they pay for so many different educational things? And I now have all this M&A experience. Like I flew out to Utah to handle a major acquisition and work with a CTO in his department. Like I got so much experience with that. So where you're saying like be open for change, like I was getting to the point that second year where I was getting ready for open for change because year one was so drastic to year two. And that was flashing lights, the warning sign should have been.
Right.
But I look at that and I go, yeah, now that I got my head kind of thinking down the path again. I am open to change. I am doing something. This right here is a great example, right? It's something entirely different, being more creative. That's the one thing that I would say right now in the world. I feel like, especially with AI, the world is so much more creative than what I remember. You having to do a lot of creative things sometimes to get noticed or even get jobs, but the creativeness has gone up. Like I've compared this to wanting to have the skill to draw, and I can't draw to save my life. But with AI, I feel like I can be like a drawer or a painter or whatever. Like I can say the things that I want and it creates the vision I want sometimes. But in a lot of cases, like I feel like I'm open to change. That is 100% the thing that I would say to take out of this current version of the tech space is you just have to be ready to pivot. And I wish everybody well. I hope that they get the things that they want, but the reality is it's rare.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that I would encourage people to play with AI. I got into tech because I loved playing with computers. I love playing video games on computers. I love building my own computer to play video games on. And then from there, I discovered the other things I could do with a computer. And I think a lot of people who are in tech lose sight of that. Not everyone knows Excel. Excel isn't sexy, but understanding how to utilize it is a skill set that a lot of people do not have. And I'm more now today than when I started in tech, but still that skill set is rare. And even people who are in development, so they're in a tech role, but that doesn't mean that they're ready to swap out RAM on a PC or they're going to troubleshoot network connection. It's not a skill that they have. It's not a skill that they want. So playing with AI will help you to understand how the AI thinks. It will introduce you to some of the cool things it can do and some of the scary things that it can do too. And then that will either help you from a cybersecurity perspective on how to secure it, or it just helps you from a usage standpoint. Because again, every tool you're going to get over the next decade is going to have AI in it somewhere. And so understanding how to write a good prompt, I learn every day. We've got amazing AI people at Curve. I learn every day about prompt writing and new things that are out there, and the discussions from the difference where I'm working now to where I was working before. The discussions are completely different level with the amount of tech that exists and the people who are doing it and the innovation that's happening there versus a legacy business that is top of their market, amazing, but they're not really doing something new.
Butter
Yeah.
versus creating new recipes really with the newer technology in a way. I mean, it's not new, but also kind of new in terms of the scale. The prompt writing, that's 100% what I am in the back of my head with everything I know that I'm trying to do right now. I'm like, it's all prompt. I got to figure out a script. I got to do I'm going to have a folder just full of scripts and prompts, and they're probably going to have to get edited over time to be like, man, what the heck were you writing 2 years ago? This is so much better now. But I understand a good prompt produces way better than me typing it in freehand and going, oh, well, that's garbage. Yeah, you're right. I am so enamored with the prompts that are coming out with anybody like at this point. Like, oh wow, I wouldn't think about putting that together, and that's why I like the collaboration and the creativeness that I'm seeing in that regard. That is the super positive that I like to see.
You just touched on one of the superpowers I wanted to talk about, and I forgot to write this down. So I'm going to talk about it right now. If you're getting in this industry, anything in tech, anything at all, security, IT, networking, whatever it is, find groups, Reddit, Discord, your local B-sides, whatever it is, find groups, because you are probably not the first person with this problem. And using ChatGPT or Claude or somebody else to go find that solution for you will work, but it won't necessarily be able to iterate. It's just going to regurgitate what it saw before. If you want to understand why they wrote it that way or what it's doing, one, some basic level coding knowledge, very good to have. Go learn some Python. Good for you. But be a part of groups, communicate. It's a great mental health thing. Even if you're an introvert, it's still a great mental health thing to know you have support and help out there. And some of the tech groups that I'm in are the kindest, most open, honest people I have ever met in my entire life. And some of it's the anonymity that comes from being on the internet. But these are the same people that if I had a real problem that I couldn't solve and I posted it on that group, there are 6 people online right now that are going to try to help me. So that's incredibly comforting to me from a tech stack, my own personal tech stack, when it comes to utilizing tool sets that I already know or stuff I don't know, because I'm wrong. I'm not going to say I'm wrong all the time, but my wife will tell you I'm wrong all the time. It's about finding the right answer, not knowing the right answer. So that is my tech superpower, is I will find you the right answer. I may not know it off top of my head, but I'm not ashamed to say I don't know something. I will go find it.
Yeah, and during this 8-month interview cycle that I did, that very thing was like the very much the coolest moment that I did, as I had an interview, and one of my sometimes closing messages, I mix them up depending, or closing questions I asked, I mix them up depending how it goes, is there anything that we didn't talk about or anything that I could have done better, or something along that phrase. And this individual was very European and very direct. So he answered it, and he's like, "I wish you did better in explaining, the cloud architecture to me." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I can't do it right now because clearly we're at the end at the same time." But I did that very thing. I sat down right after that, and I'm like, and just me as a person too. But I'm like, man, that sucks, is I definitely know this better than that. So I wrote out this entire 1-page document and sent it to him, and I was like, "Hey, I hope this is okay." Went over to him, and he was like, "Okay, cool. You know exactly what you're talking about, because clearly in the amount of time you did it and you explained it and you laid it out and how you would do it here, that's exactly that." I didn't nail it on the spot, but I went back and I found it, and that's just IT in general, really. You can't know it all at the time that you're doing it. You have to be able to go get it.
Yeah. And you bring up your European. I miss my Israeli friends for that exact reason. It was so easy to communicate with someone who just tells you the way it is. I don't need sugar. I can take my medicine exactly what it is. I screwed up. Sorry that I screwed up. I'm gonna make sure that doesn't happen again. But yeah, that brutal honesty. I don't find the brutality to be a negative. I am at the same time I'm terrible at doing it. I absolutely if everyone asks me what my weakness is from a job, I'm terrible at just like hurting your feelings and not feeling anything about that afterward. I'm going to want to tell you, hey, you know what? You did a good job. You did the best you could. Let's do better next time because they failed, but we're going to get there. So I don't mind being the bad guy, but I tend to try to add a little too much sugar to the bad medicine sometimes. So that's my own failure.
Doesn't sound like you at all. But with that, it could be a great time now to hear from our sponsors. Before we get back into the episode, I want to share a special partner that I personally use and I think a lot of leaders will appreciate. Bellendane Group, led by executive coach Sarah Bellendane, works with leaders who are navigating complexity, pressure, and high-stakes decisions. If you're moving fast but feel like the clarity just is not there, this is exactly where she comes in. Sarah helps leaders cut through the noise, make confident decisions, and lead with focus without burning out. This is not a one-size-fits-all coaching. This is a strategic partnership at the level leadership actually demands. If you need clarity fast or just need space to think at a higher level, check out bellendanegroup.com. That's BELLENDANEGROUP.com. Clarity is a strategic asset. In addition, I want to highlight something worth checking out. Unfinished Rooms by Richie Lampani, also the author of Head and Heart, which we featured back in episode 3 of Decline Invite. This book is built on simple but powerful idea. People don't leave jobs because of one bad moment. They leave because everything that was left unfinished. The unanswered questions, the missing context, the promises that never showed up. If you've ever wondered why people mentally check out before they actually leave, this gets right to the heart of it. Unfinished Rooms is now available on Kindle, with the paperback releasing March 31st. Go check it out. Because people don't leave jobs, they leave unfinished rooms. And lastly, before we jump back into the conversation, I want to share something I'm really excited about. Coming soon is Stellar Horn Group, a new fractional CIO and technology leadership practice designed to help organizations navigate modern IT challenges. Stellar Horn provides executive-level leadership for AI strategy, IT transformation, cybersecurity leadership, and complex technology projects without the need for a full-time CIO. If your organization needs experienced leadership to help guide technology decisions, modernize operations, or implement AI responsibility, Stellar Horn is here to help you. More details are coming soon, and you can follow along at Stellar Horn Group on LinkedIn. Now that we've explored strategy and discipline, let's have some fun. So, a little bit of quick fire, cyber edition. So the first thing that comes to your mind, phishing simulation or surprise red team exercise?
Phishing, because I don't want to be fired. If you run the surprise red team, you should be fired.
Probably accurate. Zero trust or defense in depth?
Defense in depth, because I think zero trust is beyond most businesses.
Yeah, I would probably agree that statement is true. I don't know if I've ever really seen it done to the way that it's described you should. Or
any bit of it is better
to.
than none of it, but it's just the reality, the costs associated, the hurdles that you have to jump through. You really need to design everything in your environment to be zero trust in order to really leverage what the hope of zero trust is. This goes back to agile. Agile is a brilliant idea, but implementing it the way it was intended is very difficult for most businesses. So I would prefer defense in depth. I believe that both of them have the same thought process of expect that it's compromised. Defense in depth is going to alert you where that compromise is, and you're going to be able to go and mitigate it. Zero trust is you're going to be compromised, but they can't do anything once they compromise it because we don't trust them anyway. So it's the same thought process behind it, but defensive depth is much easier to implement from a cost perspective than zero trust is.
Yeah, I think it's more understood in a way too. It's like you're putting up multiple fence layers, and eventually I get tired of crawling over all those fences, so I just stop.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I describe it, anyways, to non-tech individuals. Anyways, SOC 2 Type 1 or SOC 2 Type 2?
Type 2, but after Type 1. Type 2 proves you really are doing everything. Type 1 is how you're going to start. You shouldn't start with a SOC 2 Type 2. One, because it's meant to be over a period of time. It's funny, it's not always 12 months. I didn't learn that until I worked at NPI. You can do them every 6, but it's a matter of you need to have those processes in place before you try to audit them. So SOC 1 Type 1 will give you the idea, show you that all your processes are in place, and then you can just do your SOC 2 Type 2.
MFA everywhere or passwordless future?
I do think passwordless future is where we're going, but just to be clear, that is also a marketing term. The passwordless future is certificates, which is just a super long password. You're going to still see MFA owning the space, and then for as long as I can pontificate for the next 5 to 10 years, passwordless won't exist. But we're heading that way. I think UB keys and things like that are going to become more prevalent. Identity, your fingerprint on your phone, is already becoming far more prevalent. So I see more biometrics, less password.
Risk register or threat intel feed?
Oh, risk register. Threat intel feed is super sexy, but understanding and calculating your risks is going to be more valuable to the business.
Yeah, it's so crazy the amount of businesses that don't have a risk register. Just you don't know what life can be like. I guess it's the only thing I'll say on it for now.
And I'll point out, and I'll add to that, if you don't have a risk register, that's probably why you don't have a cybersecurity department. If you did, you would have the first thing you would do when you looked at your risks would go, you know what, we need someone to be monitoring and mitigating these. I need a cybersecurity department. So yeah, that's why you don't, the two kind of go hand in hand.
And then it also means that just because you don't have it or can't see it doesn't mean that all the issues don't exist already. They're out there. They're lurking.
It's driving a car with a blindfold on. That's exactly what it is.
Patch Tuesday or Incident Friday?
I hate Patch Tuesday. I have so many bad things that have happened on Tuesday, but Incident Friday definitely sucks far more. So I will take Patch Tuesday.
Seam alert at 2 a.m. or executive call at 6 a.m.?
I will take the executive call at 6 a.m. I work with Pacific Coast people now, so that's 6 a.m. my time. The seam alert that comes in at 2 a.m., the number of false positives I've run into, this is where I want AI. I want way more AI. To look at those alerts ahead of time and only bubble up the ones that I actually need to wake up for. But to be fair, I'm usually awake at 2 a.m., so that's less of a problem.
I want to say I think my first day at Iris was they forgot I was American and everybody else that I was meeting in that was all European. I'm pretty dang sure that it was 3, 4 a.m. when I started. And then halfway through, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, after this, you're done for the day. You're good.
Yeah. At NPI, we had a client call that was, I think, 2 a.m. my time. And it was absolutely the same thing. They assumed everyone else was overseas and I was just the only one who wasn't. Like, nope, I'm here in the United States too.
Hello. Encryption at rest or encryption in transit?
In transit's more important, but you should do both. I know you said you can't do both. In transit's far more important. Once the data's at rest, the hope is that you have a lot of other controls already there. In transit, just by the nature of transit, means it's going to go across other tooling, whether that's network level tooling or the internet, which is still network level tooling, but it's unregulated at that point. So yeah, in transit.
Framework first or business first?
Oh, you're going to save a lot of money if you do framework, but the reality is business. It's always business. The business drives. That's one of the things I think a lot of people who get into IT security don't understand is that your job is based on the business's income. So the business isn't making money, you don't have a job. It's the same thing for the other 30 people that are sitting around you too. So you have to prioritize the business running. It's your responsibility to make sure the business runs with an acceptable level of risk, not none.
Yeah. I mean, you can't really have feelings. I mean, have feelings, but have them appropriately still enter your bank account because that means the lights are staying on still at the business. So, you got to, again, I guess be open. I think that was thing that we said earlier. Be willing to go with the flow. Like, don't compromise your morals and your all of your security background and everything with that. But at the same time, no money is no job.
Yep, exactly.
AI threat detection or human intuition?
AI threat first, then human intuition. The reality is that where AI does its best work is massive amounts of data and correlating that to actual action. A human is going to miss it. I don't know. Have you ever done like incident management threat hunting? Is it a skill set you have?
Very little.
Okay.
Um,
So if you
like
pull a
personally.
Windows log and you look at it and you see a login at 3 a.m. and then you see something bad happen at 7 a.m. and then you see that data exfiltrate through a network firewall rule at 9 a.m., that's really, really hard for a human to catch. Definitely not
Right.
in the moment, but
Yeah.
even post moment, digging through those logs, finding that takes a very talented skill set or really good tooling. AI does both. It correlates that whole attack chain in a millisecond. I mean, it quickly brings it all up, puts it right in front of an analyst who then can make an informed decision about what action to take. So I'm looking at various tooling now, and well, the AI can shut down the firewall and shut off the website and everything. I'm like, no, wait.
Yeah, I don't want
Delete,
that.
yes. Shut down, no. I want you to take action faster than I can answer an email, page, because we all carry pagers, right? I want you to take some action, but I want that action be limited in what it's going to do. Don't give the AI root access. That's one of my favorite. Oh, you gave it root access and it went badly and you were surprised by this? Really? Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think AI is the future of this. It's just like websites killed fax machines for order taking and things like that. Embrace AI wherever you can. Just do it in a reasonable, responsible, safe manner.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of where the job can still exist. Maybe not the same quantity of individuals, but exist differently. Because instead of you going and hunting now, maybe you're just reviewing what it found and made the parallels to see if that makes sense, or the judgment at that point. Yeah, instead of just blindly turning it on and let's see what happens. Well, that story's going to end badly. Oh, early morning or late night productivity?
I am a late night person. I can get stuff done in the morning, but I need coffee and food. Uh, and it drives my wife crazy because she's a morning person, so it's opposites attract. But yeah, I am much more productive at 9 o'clock reviewing a contract than I am at 9 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, similar. I worked a second shift job for a decade and it's just never left. Although now it's probably been just as long the other way. And I just don't like waking up early. Wake up when my body says I'm ready to wake up, which now is like early morning. So I guess maybe I'm early morning. Gym, golf. I don't know why golf's in here, but gym, golf,
Not
or a
golf.
long walk to clear your head.
A long walk. I like being outdoors. So yeah, I'm a long walk person. Yeah, I don't golf.
It is
I
a
will
great
happily follow
example.
you around on the course and I'll drive you when you've had a little too much. But yeah, I am not swinging a club. I just don't find it enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example of where AI did its thing and I didn't catch the review because that is definitely a me thing. So, um, but anyways, yeah, it makes total sense. So, book, podcast, or YouTube
To relax or for other reasons?
for any reason. You're going to go learn something, you're going to go veg out, you're going to go whatever the heck it is that you want to do.
Book most of the time. I'm a multimedia person. So I will be watching a YouTube video while I'm answering emails and I'll have music on and that doesn't distract me. That lets all the different parts of my brain do whatever they want to do. But when it comes to learning, I love being able to take a note in a piece of paperback book. I'm weird. And when it comes to just sitting down and enjoying myself, it doesn't have to be a paperback now. I'll read on a Kindle. But yeah, when we go on vacations as a family, that's my vacation is I'm going to sit by the fire. I'm going to sit by the beach. I'm going to just read something. That's where I find the most joy.
I think it's a crazy concept that I think I'm going to write a book when I don't really enjoy reading them. I'll read articles all day. Read articles, like so many articles, or like reading sports or whatever, but probably learning or other, like, it's probably better through video for me because I could just set it and like walk away or do exactly what you said, be distracted, but like the voices are just entering my brain so they don't go away. Where if I'm like reading, like I'm the opposite. I'm like kind of disorganized in the terms of I don't want sticky notes all over everything because the whole dang thing is going to be a sticky note by the time I'm done with it. I've been using this list program and putting stuff in like list, and that works for me better. But yeah, probably video for that reason. My brain just doesn't like the other way.
I learned best through the edge method. I learned best by having someone show me how to do it, then
Yeah.
someone explain how to do it so I know what to anticipate, demonstrate it for me so that I can actually see it happen, then guide me while I do it, and then I teach it to someone else. So that's the way I'm going to have the most retention for what I'm doing. And it's funny because I stumbled on that in high school.
Hmm.
English is by far my worst subject. But if I took the time to teach one of my idiot friends, my good friends, about what it was that I had learned, I found I retained that better. And then luckily I learned that in high school. So that by the time I got to college, I did so much better in college than I did in high school because I used that method. I taught someone else as I went through. And that helps me now in my as an executive because I'm coaching. So I'm teaching you the things that I already know makes me a stronger advocate for whatever that thing is, whether I'm teaching you business communication or technical things or whatever it happens.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like putting it to or etching it in stone or putting it to permanent memory at that
Yes.
point. I mean, it makes perfect sense. I'd also rethink that. Sci-fi or documentary?
Sci-fi. Don't get me wrong, I love me some Ken Burns, but no, give me Star Wars.
Here's a great one. Curious. If cybersecurity didn't exist, what would you be doing?
I would be a lawyer. Yeah, in high school, I took a law class and I loved it. I mentored with a judge. I loved it. I was full on going to be a lawyer as a junior in high school. And then I met the security teacher, Mr. Swick at Huron. Man, the computer opened up the world for what was possible. And I loved that I could make the cursor dance across the screen and do whatever I told it to. And it couldn't think for itself, but with the right programming, it certainly felt like it. So I'm not saying I invented the internet, but at the same time, I may have invented AI and that I made the computer make its own decisions and draw turtle pictures based on random numbers. And that helped me when I got to NPI. I understood random number generators and why they're so hard. So yeah, it's funny the things that stick with your brain as you go through. But yeah, I would be a lawyer. I very much like arguing, if you can't tell. I'm very opinionated and I like helping people. So I would be absolutely a defense attorney.
Man, I missed opportunity. I could have seen you all over the billboards on the highways. That would have been
It is,
great.
man. I would be the top llama.
How about one hobby people might not expect from you?
I don't know. I read this beforehand. I'm a massive nerd. So I don't, as far as I know, I think I hit every stereotype that's out there. The only bit I might do is I like being outdoors. Wait, my wife has something to weigh in on. Hunting. I'm a hunter.
There
Um,
you go.
yeah.
I'm
So
not, so there you go.
yeah, I love being out in the woods. I love the aspect of call it survival, and you get that. You're not just camping in a tent. You're walking 5 to 6 miles out to a remote location and hoping to see an animal, and that's really what it is. But no, honestly, hunting is just playing euchre with your friends around the fire.
Which is great. I mean, I just started doing camping like a couple years back. Because at first I was like, why the heck would I got a perfectly nice bed. Why do anybody want to do that? And then yeah, the euchre around the campfire with a few brews. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
It's the same reason why I like golf. So what's something completely non-technical that makes you happy?
I'm gonna get all sappy on you. It's my family. They teach me more than 30 years of tech have taught me. Seeing my kids grow up, seeing them do things that terrify me. I remember my son and I were hiking through Utah and he's standing on the edge of a cliff and my brain is screaming and I said nothing and I let him experience that moment and I got to experience it via him. Yeah, my family are why I do what I do.
I mean, I can't really argue with the answer. I think it's a good answer. This one I like asking everybody. So, if your career in cybersecurity had a soundtrack, what song opens it?
Yeah. So if you're gonna play outro music for this at all, play this song. Yeah, it's Black Honey from Thrice. I prefer the Seether version, but the song is all about taking pain and not understanding why you're taking pain because you just want what you want. Why can't everything just go the way you want it to go? And that's exactly what cybersecurity is like, is the business is not understanding that it's their decisions that sometimes bring the pain and they can't just have what they want without paying that price.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And like I remember now replaying that song in my head, and the first time I hear it or heard it, I'm like, that makes sense now and why you're describing that. So a couple more and we'll get you on out of here. So one habit that aspiring security leaders should build today.
Practice speaking in front of others, being open and honest and being able to converse with other executives not in the tech space is something that all security leaders that I've worked with struggled with at one point in time in their careers. And so being open and honest about that with your peers will allow you to um, them to grow and you to grow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you can find some common ground, I mean, I hate to describe cyber stalking in a way, but if you can learn things about them that you can have conversations, it will lead to better conversations about actual work oriented things because now they like understand you a little bit more than if you just talked about work all day. Like that's just a thing, at least that I have learned that's worked for me.
I would encourage people to practice OPSEC. So when you're in a job and you meet someone for the first time and they tell you about their wife and their kids, write that down. When it comes up for when their birthday is, write that down. Uh, I'm not saying it's always valuable information, but it also allows you to make connections where maybe you struggle. And I know from my own experience, it's difficult sometimes for me to make a connection to someone who I don't know anything about. I'm actually, it drives my wife crazy. I meet strangers and make friends. Um, but I don't always remember the details about them because I didn't write it down. So writing it down so you can go back and have that conversation again builds that communication channel. And again, communication is key to cybersecurity.
Yeah, I'd say it's key in so many aspects, but definitely in cybersecurity. One thing executives misunderstand about cybersecurity.
Its value to the business and its usefulness to the business. It's not just a cost center. It's not just a requirement for audits. It can be leveraged to be so much more. It takes investment. It takes time. The time gets shortened by the level of investment, but it's something that can absolutely be leveraged to prove your value to your clients beyond just checking that I'm SOC certified or that I have a SOC 2.
Yeah, no, I think that's just a classic IT thing in general, especially cybersecurity wing portion of it, because it's just seen as like a just a cost instead of like we made some good points about how you can partner with sales or how you can find other people in the business and just through conversation about like, oh, I don't even think that you noticed that your day could be better or more efficient or whatever, and make the improvements that way. And it's hard to measure. That's the battle that I've been thinking on is those hard to measure things, finding ways to measure them, and then they become different conversations once you're able to tie the value to it.
Exactly.
So an invite that you would always accept.
Request for help. If someone in the business contacts me because they don't understand something or something is making them nervous or there's a problem, I'm going to always accept that. Even if it's 15 minutes of my day that I lose because it's not a problem that I need to deal with, I would much rather you bring up the issue and we both learn. So I'm going to teach you where the problem was. I just had this discussion with the phishing company. Like, oh, we block it before it ever gets to their boxes. I'm like, okay, well, what happens when it does get to their box? Oh, well, they click a button and it just goes away. I don't want that. I want you to this back end piece that shows the analyst why you thought it was phishing in the first place. I want my user to see that. I want them to understand why this was a phishing email. If they're just checking a box and it disappears and you never see it again and they get annual phishing training, that's not enough. They need to be treated like an adult. They need to be shown why, and then we can all get better.
Yeah, no, I look at those products and go like, who did you pull in order to build these products? Because like, yeah, you want to understand the psychology portion of it, so that way you can get better at educating you. Well, this is what you should want, I suppose, in my opinion, is the psychology of it to train your users so that then they get better and then they know what to detect, when to tell you, etc. Instead of like, yeah, I watched it check the box, see you next year. It doesn't
You
really
bring
do anything.
Yeah, you bring up something that's a tangent, which amazing. You and I are talking and we're going off on a tangent. That's the biggest danger I see in AI today, is the idea that you just give it to AI and the AI gives you the answer and you move on and that's it. That's the end of it.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to writing emails. I admit I use AI for a lot of my stuff in emails. I'll write the email and then it won't sound quite right to me. And so I'll hit the button that's right there and I'll let Gemini go through and fix it. But I take pride in it doesn't drastically change it. I've got 20 years of writing executive emails, and other than occasionally writing HTE instead of I can write something that sounds coherent. But I still see the value in letting AI make it more polished, more professional, more brief. I tend to talk too much, but that skill set is something that I think as people today are getting into business, if all they're doing is clicking that button and they're not even reading what the AI is fixing it with, and they're just clicking submit and off it goes, they don't learn that skill set of how to communicate at that level. I don't want someone who's 25 walking into a boardroom going, "What up, bro?" I mean, it's just if they can't
True.
speak executive, it's just like anything else. You're gonna have a hard time in this world. You need to learn to communicate clearly.
Yeah, that's probably the number one thing that I use it for right now, because I use, like, I write all my own stuff and then I run it through, and then yeah, I see where improvements or kind of like how it changed it, or if I like that particular flow of where it's going, and I eventually piece together what I want at the end of the day, and it's an improved product, of so to think, from the original version that I gave it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I see. I maybe got spicy there, so we changed it into this, and that is much more elegant sounding. Let's go with that. So yeah, that's where I would change it to. So where can everybody connect with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on a lot of different Discords. I don't want to dox them and give them all out, but if you're on cybersecurity Discords, I'm probably there with you. But you can always hit me up on LinkedIn. I accept most requests, not all. I'm going to be honest. I don't accept every request, but I'm more than happy to provide mentorship if that's what's required. Or if we work together, please reach out. I'm looking at you, Kenzie.
And we'll definitely include a LinkedIn link in the description. So with that, it's going to bring us to the conclusion. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time. You're absolutely right. It was way longer than anything that I gave you, but there was a lot of great tangent conversations. Just a lot of great info, I think. And I hope that all of the cybersecurity individuals who, honestly, one of the most, I agree with what you said earlier, it's one of the most kindest communities out there. My most interacted posts were cybersecurity posts from the last 4 or 5 months or so, especially getting the CISSP, studying for CISM, just and helping others that are doing the same thing. So I hope that this brings you guys something. And if you got questions, by all means, yeah, reach out. But Jay, thank you for doing this. I know it was a long time and many planned endeavors and some power outages. And I'm trying to think of all the things, but we finally got there.
There was the 3 months of a dark place after doing a job transfer, followed up by a sudden power outage. Yeah, no, this was fun. I'm sorry that I took this long to get together and do this, but thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, decline invite, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.